What would you do if finding a wallet on the street could either save your dying daughter or destroy the one man who might save you both? Emily Carter made her choice on a rain-soaked Manhattan sidewalk, and it changed everything. But this isn't some fairy tale about goodness being rewarded. This is about desperation, broken people, and the messy truth that sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything you can't afford to lose. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this journey travels. The rain came down like needles that October evening, the kind of cold that worked its way through cheap fabric and settled into your bones. Emily Carter's grocery bag was already tearing at the bottom seam, her fingers numb where the plastic handles cut into her palm. Inside, day-old bread, store-brand peanut butter, a gallon of milk she'd mentally calculated would last exactly 4 days if she watered down Sophie's cereal. 30 years old, and this was her life. Mathematics of survival played on repeat in her head, rent due in 3 days, checking account showing $127.18, landlord who'd stopped accepting excuses 2 months ago. The light changed at Fifth Avenue. Emily stepped off the curb, and that's when she saw it. A black leather wallet, lying there in the gutter like someone had dropped a winning lottery ticket and walked away. She stopped. Her heart did something complicated in her chest, a stutter step between hope and fear. Around her, Manhattan kept moving. Taxi horns, the hiss of tires on wet pavement, a businessman shouldering past her with an irritated grunt, his Burberry coat leaving traces of expensive cologne in the rain. Emily looked around. No one was turning back, searching pockets with panic. No one was retracing steps. She bent down, picked it up. The leather was soft, butter soft, the kind that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She opened it with shaking fingers, telling herself she was just looking for identification. She was just trying to find the owner, but her eyes went straight to the cash. Bills, thick, crisp bills. Her breath caught. She counted without meaning to. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. She stopped. Couldn't make herself keep counting because the number was already obscene, already more money than she'd seen in one place since before David died. Mom? Sophie's voice echoed in her memory. That morning, holding up her sneakers with the sole flapping loose. Can we fix these? Not asking for new ones, never asking for what they couldn't afford. 6 years old and already learning that wanting things was dangerous. Emily's hands were trembling now. She knew she should close the wallet, should find a phone number, return it, do the right thing like she'd been raised to do. But her mind was racing through possibilities like shuffling cards, rent paid, Sophie's shoes, the dentist appointment she'd canceled twice, the electric bill threatening disconnection, the prescription she'd been stretching by taking half doses. One decision, one moment, everything could change. She looked at the license. The face staring back belonged to a man in his 30s, strong jaw, dark hair, the kind of professional photo that costs money to take. The name underneath read, Nathaniel Alexander Hayes. The address was Upper East Side. Of course it was. Emily felt something bitter rise in her throat. This man probably spent more on lunch than she made in a week. Probably had so much money he wouldn't even miss what was in this wallet. Probably had insurance, credit cards, assistance to replace everything within an hour. She stood there in the rain, water running down her face, grocery bag cutting into her palm, and felt the weight of 3 years of grinding poverty pressing down like a physical thing. The light changed again. Someone bumped into her from behind. "Move it," a woman snapped. Emily stumbled forward, clutching the wallet. Her apartment was 6 blocks away. She could be home in 15 minutes. Could hide the wallet, hide the money, pretend she never found it. Who would know? Who would even care? Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out with her free hand, awkward, nearly dropping the grocery bag. Text from Mrs. Chen, the neighbor who watched Sophie after school. Sophie says her throat hurts, feels warm. Might be fever. Emily's chest tightened. Sophie had been sick twice already this fall. The pediatrician had mentioned antibiotics last time, but Emily had smiled and said they'd manage with rest and fluids because she didn't have $60 for the prescription, and she definitely didn't have $200 for another office visit. She looked down at the wallet in her hand, at all that money. Her daughter needed medicine. Her daughter needed shoes. Her daughter needed... No. Emily said it out loud, to the rain, to the street, to herself. Her voice sounded strange, shaky, but firm. She opened the wallet again, this time looking past the cash. There had to be a phone number, business card, something. Her fingers found it tucked behind the license. A business card, heavy stock, embossed lettering, Hayes Capital Partners. A phone number printed underneath in small, elegant font. Emily pulled out her phone. Her finger hovered over the numbers. This was the moment. Last chance to change her mind, to make the choice that would solve everything, at least for a little while. She dialed. It rang 3 times. Emily almost hung up. Then a voice answered, female, professional, the kind of crisp efficiency that came from answering phones in buildings with marble lobbies. Hayes Capital Partners, Mr. Hayes' office. Emily's voice came out smaller than she intended. I found a wallet. It belongs to Nathaniel Hayes. A pause. Then, sharper. You found Mr. Hayes' wallet? Yes. It was on Fifth Avenue near... Emily looked around, disoriented. Near 52nd Street. Where are you now? Emily hesitated. Giving her address felt dangerous somehow, like admitting something. I can bring it to your office tomorrow, or tonight, if... What's your name? Emily. Emily Carter. Another pause. Emily could hear keyboard keys clicking, being evaluated, probably running a background check already, making sure she wasn't some criminal, some scammer. Can you hold the line, Ms. Carter? Yes. Silence. Then music. Something classical that made Emily feel even more out of place than she already did. She stood there in the rain, grocery bag disintegrating, water soaking through her jacket, holding a stranger's fortune, while Vivaldi played through her phone's tinny speaker. The music cut off abruptly. A different voice. Male. Deep. Exhausted in a way that expensive suits usually hid. This is Nathaniel Hayes. Emily froze. Mr. Hayes, I found your wallet. So I'm told. He didn't sound suspicious exactly, just tired. Where did you find it? Fifth Avenue and 52nd. It was in the gutter. I think it might have fallen out of a car or the SUV. He cut her off, but gently. I was getting out, briefcase, phone, jacket. I must have... He trailed off. Then, is everything still there? The question hung in the air. Emily looked down at the wallet, at the cash she hadn't finished counting, at the credit cards that could probably buy a small country. Yes, she said. Everything. A long silence. Long enough that Emily thought the call might have dropped. Ms. Carter. His voice had changed, softer. Thank you. 2 words, but something in the way he said them made Emily's throat tight. I can bring it to your office, she said quickly. Tomorrow morning I can... No. No? I'll come to you and... Before she could protest, he continued, I'd like to thank you properly, in person. Where do you live? Emily's instinct was to refuse, to maintain whatever distance she could from this world that wasn't hers. But she was cold, tired, worried about Sophie, and still standing in the rain like an idiot. She gave him her address. The apartment building in Washington Heights that she'd once thought was temporary, back when she still believed things would get better. I'll be there tomorrow morning, Hayes said. 9 o'clock, if that works for you. I have to take my daughter to school at 8:30, but after that, 10 o'clock then. Mr. Hayes, you really don't have to. 10 o'clock, Ms. Carter. He hung up before she could argue. Emily stood there, phone still pressed to her ear, rain running down her neck. Then she carefully put the wallet in her jacket's inner pocket, picked up her disintegrating grocery bag, and headed home. The apartment building had seen better days, probably sometime in the 1970s. Emily climbed 4 flights because the elevator had been broken since July, and the landlord kept promising fixes that never came. Her legs burned by the 3rd floor. The grocery bag finally gave up entirely on the 4th, splitting open and sending the milk jug rolling down the hallway. Damn it! She chased it down, gathered everything in her arms, fumbled for her keys. The door opened before she could get the key in the lock. Mrs. Chen stood there, small and sturdy, her face creased with concern. Emily, Sophie's fever is higher. Emily's stomach dropped. She pushed past into the apartment, dumping groceries on the kitchen counter, already heading for the bedroom. Sophie lay curled on the couch. The apartment was too small for a second bedroom, so the living room pulled double duty. Her daughter's face was flushed, dark hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. "Hey, baby." Emily knelt beside her, pressing a hand to Sophie's forehead. Hot. Too hot. "How are you feeling?" "Tired." Sophie's voice was scratchy. "My throat hurts." Emily's mind raced. No insurance. The free clinic was closed until Monday. Emergency room would mean bills she couldn't pay, collections calls, more debt added to the mountain already crushing her. "I'll get you some medicine," she said, smoothing Sophie's hair back. "Some water. You're going to be fine, okay?" Sophie nodded, trusting in the way that made Emily's heart crack wide open. Mrs. Chen touched her shoulder. "I have to go. Michael needs dinner, but call me if—" "Thank you." Emily walked her to the door, pressed $20 into her hand. It was too much, they both knew it, but Mrs. Chen had stayed 2 hours past when Emily should have been home, and Emily couldn't ask for kindness without offering something in return. Mrs. Chen tried to refuse, but Emily closed her fingers around the money. "Please." After she left, Emily stood in the quiet apartment, listening to Sophie's labored breathing. She thought about the wallet in her jacket pocket, about the money that could pay for a real doctor, real medicine, everything Sophie needed. She'd made her choice, called the number, set things in motion. But standing there in her shabby apartment with her sick daughter on the couch, Emily wondered if she'd chosen wrong. That night, after Sophie finally fell asleep, Emily sat at the tiny kitchen table and opened the wallet again. She didn't touch the money, just looked at it. All those crisp bills that represented choices she'd never have. Then she looked at Nathaniel Hayes' driver's license again, studying the face. He had kind eyes, she thought. Or maybe she was projecting, trying to make herself feel better about returning it. The business card said he was CEO, Hayes Capital Partners. She pulled out her phone, ignoring the crack across the screen she couldn't afford to fix, and Googled the name. The search results made her breath catch. Nathaniel Hayes, 32, billionaire investor. Hayes. Capital closes $500 million fund. Nathaniel Hayes, named to Fortune's 40 under 40. Billionaire. She'd found a billionaire's wallet. Emily scrolled through images. Hayes at charity galas, Hayes shaking hands with politicians, Hayes on the cover of Financial Times looking serious and untouchable. Then she found one that made her pause. Hayes leaving a courthouse, a small boy holding his hand. The caption read, "Nathaniel Hayes and son Marcus following custody hearing 2 years after wife's tragic death. A widower, a single father." Just like she was a widow. A single mother. Emily closed her phone, put the wallet back in her jacket pocket, went to check on Sophie one more time before bed. Her daughter's fever hadn't broken, but she was sleeping peacefully. Emily stood in the doorway, watching the rise and fall of that small chest, and made a quiet promise to herself. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever came from this strange twist of fate, she'd done the right thing, even if it cost her everything. Emily didn't sleep much. She kept running through scenarios, imagining how the morning would go. Would Hayes send an assistant after all? Would he show up in a suit that cost more than her car? Wait, she didn't have a car anymore, had sold it a year ago. Would he look around her apartment with barely concealed disdain? Would he hand her some generic thank you and leave? At 6 a.m., she gave up on sleep. Sophie's fever had broken sometime in the night, leaving her tired but better. Emily gave her Tylenol and water, made oatmeal they ate together on the couch while watching cartoons. "No school today, baby. You need to rest." Sophie looked relieved. "Can I stay with Mrs. Chen?" "I'll ask her." But when Emily knocked on Mrs. Chen's door at 8, the older woman took one look at her face and said, "You look terrible. What's wrong?" "Nothing. Someone's coming over at 10, about the wallet I found." "The wallet?" Emily realized she hadn't explained. "I found someone's wallet yesterday. I'm returning it this morning." Mrs. Chen's eyes narrowed. "You kept it overnight?" "I called them right away. They're coming to pick it up." She hesitated. "Can you watch Sophie for an hour? Her fever broke, but I don't want her going to school." "Of course." Mrs. Chen took Sophie's hand, then lower. "Emily, be careful. It's just a wallet." Nothing is ever just anything. At 9:45, Emily's apartment looked as presentable as she could make it. She'd picked up Sophie's toys, washed the dishes, hidden the stack of overdue bills, changed into her one good blouse, the navy one she wore to job interviews that never led anywhere, put on lipstick, then took it off because it felt like trying too hard, then put it back on because showing up looking half dead felt worse. The buzzer rang at exactly 10 o'clock. Emily pressed the intercom button. "Hello? Miss Carter." "It's Nathaniel Hayes." His voice sounded different through the static, closer somehow, more real. She buzzed him in, then spent the longest 90 seconds of her life waiting for him to climb 4 flights of stairs. The knock, when it came, was soft, polite. Emily opened the door. Nathaniel Hayes stood in her hallway, and he looked wrong. Not in a bad way, just wrong in the way that expensive things looked wrong in cheap places. His suit probably cost $5,000. His shoes were Italian leather. His watch caught the overhead light and gleamed, but his face was tired, really tired, the kind of exhaustion that lived in the bones. "Miss Carter," he held out his hand. Emily shook it. His palm was warm, his grip firm, but not crushing. "Mr. Hayes, come in." He stepped into her apartment, and Emily saw it through his eyes. The water stain on the ceiling, the secondhand furniture, the toys in the corner, the smallness of it all. Her cheeks burned. "I have your wallet," she said quickly, moving to get it from the counter. "Wait." She turned. Hayes was holding flowers. She hadn't even noticed them at first. Lilies, white and perfect and probably expensive. "I wanted to thank you properly," he said, offering them to her. Emily took them automatically, awkward, unsure where to put them. She didn't own a vase. You didn't have to. You could have kept it." Hayes's eyes met hers, and they were darker than they'd looked in the photos. Brown, with flecks of gold. "The wallet. The money. I would never have known. But I would have." The words came out before she could stop them. Honest, maybe too honest. Something shifted in Hayes's expression. "Can we sit?" Emily blinked. "Oh, yes, of course." She gestured to the couch, suddenly mortified that it was the same couch Sophie had been sweating on all night. "Can I get you something? Coffee? Tea? I think I have tea somewhere. Tea would be nice." She escaped to the kitchen, grateful for something to do with her hands. Put the kettle on. Found the box of tea bags Mrs. Chen had given her last Christmas. Realized she only had mismatched mugs. When she brought the tea out, Hayes was still standing. Looking at the photos on the wall, Emily and Sophie at Coney Island last summer, the two of them making snow angels last winter, Sophie's school picture from kindergarten. "Your daughter?" he asked. "Yes, Sophie." Emily handed him a mug. "She's 6. Hayes took the tea but didn't drink, just held it, looking at the photos. "Where's her father?" The question should have felt invasive. Somehow it didn't. "He died 3 years ago. Car accident." "I'm sorry." 2 words. The same 2 words everyone always said. But Hayes said them like he meant it, like he understood. Emily sat. After a moment, Hayes sat too, careful, like he was afraid the couch might break under him. "I lost my wife 4 years ago," he said quietly. "I have a son. Marcus. He's 7. The silence between them held weight. Emily finally remembered the wallet, retrieved it from the counter, handed it over. Hayes opened it, glanced through it without really looking, then closed it again. "Everything's there?" he asked. "Everything." "You didn't count the money?" Emily hesitated. "I counted some of it. Then I stopped." "Why?" "Because if I kept counting, I would know exactly what I was giving up." The truth slipped out, raw and unfiltered. And I already knew it was too much. Hayes looked at her for a long moment. "How much do you need?" Emily's face went hot. "What? You obviously need money. That's why you counted. That's why you stopped." He said it without judgment, just fact. "How much do you need?" I didn't return this for a reward." "I know. That's why I'm asking." Emily stood up, crossing her arms. "I don't want your money, Mr. Hayes." "Everyone wants money, Miss Carter. I want to earn it." The words came out harder than she intended. "I've been poor my whole life. I know what it's like to need things I can't have. But I won't." She took a breath. "I returned your wallet because it wasn't mine to keep. That's all." Hayes stood too. They faced each other across her tiny living room, and Emily expected him to look offended or dismissive. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "What did you do before?" he asked. "For work. Bookkeeping, accounting. I have an associate's degree, but Emily stopped. This felt too much like a job interview she hadn't asked for. "Why?" "Because you're smart." Hayes said it simply. "The way you just spoke about earning versus taking, the way you thought through the choice with the wallet, that's analytical thinking." "Mr. Hayes, do you have a resume?" Emily stared at him. "What?" "A resume. I'm hiring for a financial analyst position at Hayes Capital. The pay starts at $90,000 a year, full benefits, health insurance." He pulled out his phone. "I can have my assistant send you the details." 90,000. The number hit Emily like a physical blow. That was more than double what she'd made before Sophie was born. That was health insurance, stability, a life. "I can't," she heard herself say. "Why not?" "Because I'm not qualified, because I don't have a 4-year degree, because Emily gestured around the apartment. "Because this isn't my world. I don't belong in a place like Hayes Capital." Hayes's expression softened. 3 hours ago, I had given up on finding my wallet. I'd already canceled my cards, filed a police report, written it off as gone. Then my assistant told me some woman called from Washington Heights saying she found it on the street. He paused. "Do you know what I thought?" Emily shook her head. "I thought it was a scam. I thought you'd looked at my license, Googled my name, and were calling to extort money or publicity or something." He smiled, but it was tired. "I'm 32 years old, and I've already become so cynical that honest kindness seems impossible. I just did what anyone would do." "No, you didn't." Hayes looked at her directly. "Most people would have kept it, justified it 100 different ways. You had every reason to keep that money, and you still called." Emily didn't know what to say to that. "Come interview," Hayes said. "That's all I'm asking. Come see the office, meet the team. If you hate it, walk away. But give yourself the chance." "Why do you care?" "Because I need people like you." Hayes's voice was quiet, but firm. "People who understand what money actually means because they've lived without it. People who won't lie to me because they're afraid of losing their job. People who—" He trailed off, then started again. "The world I live in, Ms. Carter, is full of very smart people who've never had to make a real choice, and I've learned that makes them blind to certain things." Emily thought about Sophie, about the bills, about the future that always seemed just out of reach. She thought about the choice she'd made last night in the rain. "I'll think about it," she said finally. Hayes nodded, handed her a business card, different from the one in the wallet, this one with his direct number. "Call me. Tomorrow. This week. Whenever you're ready." He moved toward the door, then stopped, turned back. "Ms. Carter, Emily." He hesitated like he was about to say something important, then changed his mind. "Thank you. Really. For the wallet, yes, but also for this." He gestured vaguely at the apartment, the conversation, the morning. "For being honest." After he left, Emily stood in the middle of her apartment, holding the business card and the lilies, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hayes, capital HR. "Mr. Hayes asked us to reach out regarding the financial analyst position. When would you be available for an initial interview?" Emily sat down on the couch, put her head in her hands, then she picked up her phone and typed, "Tomorrow afternoon works." She hit send before she could talk herself out of it. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Emily told Mrs. Chen about the job interview, trying to sound casual, like it was no big deal. Mrs. Chen just looked at her with those knowing eyes and said, "Sometimes heaven puts opportunity in your path. Don't be too proud to take it." That evening, after Sophie was in bed, Emily pulled out the old laptop that took 5 minutes to boot up. She spent hours researching Hayes Capital, reading about their investment strategy, their major deals, their corporate philosophy. Then she dug out her old resume, the one from before David died, before Sophie, before everything fell apart. It looked pathetic. 3 years of silence, part-time bookkeeping jobs that barely counted as work experience. She wanted to cry. Instead, she rewrote it. Honest about the gaps, but clear about her skills. uploaded it at midnight with a cover letter that she rewrote 7 times before finally hitting send. Sleep didn't come easy. She lay in the dark, listening to the sounds of the city through thin walls, and wondered if she was making a mistake, if she was reaching for something too far above her station, if Nathaniel Hayes had only offered out of guilt or pity or some billionaire's whim that would evaporate by morning. But when morning came, there was another text. Interview scheduled for Thursday, 2 p.m. Ask for Jennifer Park at reception, 3 days away. Emily spent them studying. She went to the library, couldn't afford internet at home, and read everything she could find about financial analysis, market trends, Hayes Capital's recent moves. She borrowed books on Excel, on financial modeling, on corporate structure. She studied while Sophie watched cartoons. She studied after Sophie fell asleep. She studied until her eyes burned and the words blurred together. Wednesday night, she laid out her interview outfit, the navy blouse. Black pants that were a little too loose now. She'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. Shoes she'd re-heeled herself because new ones weren't in the budget. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and saw a tired single mother playing dress-up in a world that would eat her alive. Stop it, she told her reflection. You're smart. You're capable. You can do this. Her reflection didn't look convinced.
Where's I? Sway.
Thursday arrived gray and cold, the kind of November day that promised winter. Emily dropped Sophie at school, endured her daughter's tight hug, and whispered, "Good luck, Mama," and took 3 trains to get to Lower Manhattan. Hayes Capital occupied floors 18 through 25 of a glass tower that seemed to pierce the sky. Emily stood on the sidewalk, craning her neck up, feeling impossibly small. The lobby was all marble and steel. The security guard looked at her like she might be lost. "Can I help you?" "I have an interview. Hayes Capital." He checked his tablet, nodded, handed her a visitor badge. 18th floor. The elevator was mirrored on all sides. Emily watched herself rise floor by floor, trying not to notice how out of place she looked. The doors opened on 18 and Emily stepped into another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Modern art on the walls. People in expensive suits moving with purpose. The receptionist sat at a curved desk that probably cost more than Emily's entire apartment building. "Emily Carter," she managed. "I have a 2 o'clock with Jennifer Park." The receptionist smiled. Perfectly white teeth, perfectly styled hair, and picked up the phone. Murmured something. Then, "Someone will be right with you. Please have a seat." Emily sat in a chair that was more sculpture than furniture and tried not to fidget. 5 minutes passed. 10. She was starting to think this was all a mistake when a woman emerged from a hallway, mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. "Ms. Carter, I'm Jennifer Park, head of HR." She extended her hand. "Thank you for coming in." The handshake was firm, assessing. Emily stood, hoping her palm wasn't sweating. "Let's head to the conference room." Emily followed Jennifer through a maze of glass-walled offices and open workspaces. People glanced up as they passed, curious. Or maybe she was imagining it. The conference room was enormous. Windows on 2 sides, a table that could seat 20. 4 people were already waiting. 3 men, 1 woman, all looking important and vaguely intimidating. Jennifer made introductions. Charles Wright, Chief Financial Officer. David Martinez, Head of Analytics. Sarah Chen, Senior Portfolio Manager. That was Hayes' son's name. Marcus Holloway, Investment Director. Emily shook hands with each of them, trying to remember names, trying not to panic. "Please, sit," Jennifer said, gesturing to a chair. Emily sat, pulled out the notebook and pen she'd brought, a trick from her college days. "Take notes, show you're engaged." "We've reviewed your resume," Charles Wright began. He was older, gray at the temples, the kind of person who'd probably been doing this job since before Emily was born. "You have bookkeeping experience, which is good, but this position requires sophisticated financial analysis. Walk us through your understanding of risk-adjusted returns." The question hit Emily like cold water. Risk-adjusted returns. She'd read about this, studied it. She took a breath. Risk-adjusted returns measure the profit of an investment relative to the risk involved. The most common metric is the Sharpe ratio, excess return divided by standard deviation. But it's not just about the math, it's about understanding that every return comes with a cost, and sometimes the highest return isn't the smartest choice if the risk is disproportionate. She paused. The room was quiet. In my bookkeeping work, I saw this constantly. Small businesses chasing high-margin deals without considering cash flow risk. They'd look profitable on paper but collapse because they couldn't cover expenses while waiting for payment. Same principle, different scale. David Martinez leaned forward. Interesting analogy. How would you apply that to evaluating a potential acquisition target? And they were off. For the next hour, they threw questions at her, each one harder than the last. Financial modeling, market analysis, corporate valuation. Emily answered what she could, admitted what she didn't know, asked clarifying questions when she needed to. Her shirt stuck to her back with sweat. Her hands shook slightly whenever she picked up her pen. But her mind stayed clear, focused, pulling from everything she'd learned over 3 frantic days and everything she'd lived through 3 hard years. Finally, Jennifer glanced at her watch. I think we're good here. Thank you, Miss Carter. We'll be in touch. Emily stood, shook hands again, let Jennifer walk her back to the elevator. In the mirrored walls, she looked exhausted. You did well, Jennifer said as they waited for the elevator. Better than you think. Thank you, Emily managed. The elevator doors opened. Emily stepped in, pressed the button for the lobby. Just before the doors closed, she saw him. Nathaniel Hayes, walking down the hallway toward the conference room. He caught her eye through the closing gap. He smiled. Then the door shut and Emily was alone, descending back to ground level, back to reality. She didn't expect to hear back quickly. These things took time. She knew that from the dozen other jobs she'd applied for over the past year, the ones that had sent polite rejection emails, or, more often, no response at all. But Friday morning, her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Miss Carter, it's Jennifer Park. Emily's heart stopped. Oh, hi. I'll cut to the chase. The team was impressed, very impressed. We'd like to offer you the position. The words didn't make sense at first. Emily sat down hard on her kitchen chair. I'm sorry, what? Financial analyst at Hayes Capital. Starting salary $90,000, full benefits package, 4 weeks PTO. When can you start? Emily's hands were shaking. Are you sure? The interview was just yesterday, and I don't have a 4-year degree, and Mr. Hayes has final say on all senior hires. He sat in on the interview remotely. Jennifer's voice softened slightly. He's very confident in you, Ms. Carter. Are you confident in yourself? Emily thought about Sophie, about the bills, about 3 years of scraping by and making do and surviving 1 month at a time. She thought about the wallet in the rain, about the choice she'd made. Yes, she said. Yes, I'm confident. Good. I'll email you the paperwork. Can you start Monday? Monday? Emily's mind raced. Yes, Monday works. After she hung up, Emily sat very still in her silent apartment. Then she put her head down on the kitchen table and cried, huge gasping sobs that shook her whole body. When she finally stopped, she called Mrs. Chen. Can you watch Sophie tomorrow? I need to buy work clothes. Mrs. Chen laughed, delighted. You got it? I got it. I told you, sometimes heaven puts opportunity in your path. That weekend, Emily spent money she didn't have yet on clothes she desperately needed. 2 blouses, 1 blazer, decent shoes. She stood in the thrift store dressing room, looking at herself in professional attire, and barely recognized the woman staring back. Monday morning, she dropped Sophie at school, took 3 trains to Lower Manhattan, and walked into Hayes Capital with her visitor badge that would soon be replaced by an employee ID. Jennifer met her in the lobby. Ready? Ready. And Emily Carter, 30-year-old widow and single mother from Washington Heights, stepped into her new life. She had no idea that everything was about to get much, much more complicated. The first week nearly broke her. Emily's desk was a glass-topped monolith on the 19th floor, positioned in an open workspace where everyone could see everyone else. No walls, no privacy, just exposure. Her computer had 3 monitors. She'd never worked with more than one, and the financial software loaded on it might as well have been written in ancient Greek. You'll get the hang of it, said the woman at the next desk. Her name was Lauren, mid-20s, Princeton graduate, according to the diploma Emily had glimpsed during introductions. It's intuitive once you understand the logic. Nothing about it felt intuitive. Emily spent her lunch breaks in the bathroom, watching YouTube tutorials on her phone, trying to decode software that everyone else seemed to navigate effortlessly. She stayed late every night, long after the office emptied, practicing models and formulas until her eyes burned. The subway ride home was a blur of exhaustion. Sophie would already be asleep at Mrs. Chen's, and Emily would carry her daughter's warm weight up 4 flights of stairs, tuck her in, then collapse on the couch with her laptop, studying more. By Thursday, she'd made her first major mistake. David Martinez had asked for a risk assessment on a potential healthcare investment. Emily had spent 6 hours building the model, checking her work 3 times, convinced she'd finally gotten something right. She submitted it at 4 p.m., feeling a tiny spark of pride. At 4:15, her phone rang. Internal line. "Emily, it's David. Can you come to my office?" Her stomach dropped. Of course. His office was glass-walled overlooking the trading floor. Through the windows, Emily could see the entire 19th floor watching as she walked the corridor of shame. David sat behind his desk, her report pulled up on his screen. He didn't look angry. Worse, he looked disappointed. "Walk me through your assumptions on the reimbursement rates," he said. Emily's mouth went dry. Reimbursement rates. She'd used the national average because she couldn't find specific data for the region in question. "I use CMS national averages," she said. "I couldn't locate regional breakdowns in the database. They're in the proprietary research folder, healthcare subfolder. Regional variations matter significantly in this sector." David turned his screen toward her. The numbers were different, very different, different enough that her entire conclusion was wrong. "I didn't know we had proprietary research," Emily said quietly. "Everyone knows that." "I didn't." David studied her for a long moment. "Emily, I'm going to be direct with you. This position has a steep learning curve. Most of our analysts come from top-tier MBA programs. They have years of finance experience. I don't know what Nathaniel saw in you, but if you can't keep up, this isn't going to work." The words hit like a slap. Emily felt her face burn. "I understand. Do you need more training? We can arrange—" "No." The word came out harder than she intended. "I'll figure it out." She left his office with her head high and her hands shaking. Made it back to her desk. Opened the proprietary research folder she hadn't known existed and started reading. Lauren glanced over. "You okay?" "Fine." "Martinez is tough, but he's fair. I said I'm fine." Emily wasn't fine. She was drowning, but she'd be damned if she'd let anyone see it. That night, she didn't leave until midnight. Rebuilt the entire model from scratch, using the correct data this time. Sent it to David with a brief note. "Revised analysis attached. Won't happen again." His response came at 6 the next morning. "Better. Much better." 2 words. But they felt like oxygen. Friday afternoon, Emily was deep in a comparative analysis when a shadow fell across her desk. She looked up. Nathaniel Hayes stood there, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable in his own office building. "Mr. Hayes," Emily started to stand. "Don't get up. I'm just making rounds." He glanced at her screens. "How's the first week treating you?" Emily thought about lying. Saying everything was great, she was adjusting fine. No problems at all. But something about the way Hayes was looking at her, like he actually wanted the truth, made her pause. "It's hard," she admitted. "Harder than I expected." "Because of the work or because of the people?" "Both." Hayes smiled slightly. "The people get easier. The work gets harder." "That's not encouraging." "It's honest." He pulled over a chair from an empty desk, sat down like they were equals instead of billionaire CEO and brand new analyst. "Can I give you some advice?" "Please." "Stop trying to prove you belong here. You already belong here. I hired you. You hired me because I returned your wallet. I hired you because you're smart and you think differently than everyone else in this building." Hayes leaned forward. "Half the people on this floor have identical resumes. Same schools, same internships, same thought patterns. You know what that creates? Blind spots. Groupthink. Expensive mistakes that no one sees coming because they're all looking at the problem the same way." Emily wanted to believe him, but the weight of the week pressed down. "David Martinez doesn't think I can keep up." "David Martinez is brilliant at analytics and terrible at seeing potential." Hayes' voice was firm. "He gave you an assignment without proper onboarding, then criticized you for not knowing information you had no way of accessing. That's on him, not you. He said most analysts here have MBAs. Most analysts here will plateau in 5 years because they've been taught how to think, but not why to think. Hayes stood. You've lived in the real world, Emily. You understand what money means when you don't have it. That perspective is worth more than any degree. He walked away before she could respond, leaving her staring at her monitors with something fragile and dangerous growing in her chest. Hope. The next Monday, Emily arrived at 7 a.m. The office was nearly empty, just a handful of early risers and people who'd never left from the night before. She made coffee in the break room, claimed a conference room, and spread out everything she'd learned during her chaotic first week. By the time her coworkers started filtering in at 8:30, Emily had created a reference guide, every database, every folder, every shortcut and resource that no one had bothered to show her. She'd mapped it all out, organized it, made it make sense. She sent it to herself. Then, on impulse, sent it to David Martinez with a note. Thought this might be useful for the next new hire. His response came 30 minutes later. This is excellent. I'm adding it to our onboarding materials. Thank you. Lauren appeared at Emily's desk around 10. Did you really send Martinez a training guide? Just some notes I made for myself. Everyone's talking about it. Apparently it's better than the official onboarding manual. Lauren grinned. You made HR look bad. I love it. Emily didn't know whether to feel proud or terrified. The days began to blur together. Emily learned the rhythms of Hayes Capital, the morning meetings where deals were discussed in rapid-fire shorthand, the afternoon quiet when everyone disappeared into analysis, the evening chaos when markets closed and positions needed reviewing. She learned who to ask for help and who to avoid. She learned which coffee shop had the fastest service and which subway entrance got her to the office 3 minutes faster. She learned to be invisible when she needed to be, and visible when it mattered. 3 weeks in, she caught her first real break. Sarah Chen, the senior portfolio manager, stopped by Emily's desk with a file folder. I need a second set of eyes on this. We're looking at a manufacturing company in Ohio. Solid financials, good management, but something feels off and I can't pinpoint it. Emily took the folder. Spent the afternoon going through balance sheets and cash flow statements. The numbers looked good, really good, almost suspiciously good. She dug deeper, requested additional documentation, found the annual reports from 3 years back, before the company had started its aggressive expansion. And there it was. Buried in footnotes and accounting adjustments, they were capitalizing expenses that should have been written off immediately, making their profit margins look healthier than they actually were. Emily wrote up her findings, kept it factual, unemotional, took it to Sarah's office at 5 p.m. Sarah read it in silence, then looked up. You found this in one afternoon? It's a common tactic for companies trying to attract investors. Make the growth look organic when it's really accounting tricks. How did you know to look for it? Emily thought about the small businesses she'd worked with, the ones that had fudged their books to get loans they couldn't afford. I've seen it before. Smaller scale, but same principle. Sarah smiled, actually smiled. I'm presenting this to the investment committee tomorrow. I'll make sure they know it was your analysis. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Sarah's voice was firm. You just saved us from a very expensive mistake, Emily. Take the credit. The next morning, Emily sat in on her first investment committee meeting. The room was full of senior partners, people whose names appeared in financial publications. Nathaniel Hayes sat at the head of the table, running the meeting with quiet authority. Sarah presented the Ohio manufacturing deal, explained the warning signs, credited Emily's analysis. Every eye in the room turned to her. Walk us through it, Hayes said. Emily's throat went tight, but she stood, went to the whiteboard, and explained. The accounting tricks, the red flags, the reason they should pass on the deal. Her hands shook slightly as she wrote numbers, but her voice stayed steady. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then Charles Wright, the CFO who'd grilled her in the interview, spoke up. That's sharp work, Carter. Very sharp. The committee voted unanimously to pass on the deal. 3 months later, that same manufacturing company collapsed when their accounting fraud became public. Hayes Capital avoided losing $40 million because Emily had spotted what everyone else missed. After that, things shifted. People started coming to her desk with questions. Not condescending questions, real ones. Lauren invited her to lunch with a group of analysts. David Martinez actually said good morning when he passed her in the hallway. But success brought new complications. November bled into December. The office transformed into something from a magazine spread, a massive Christmas tree in the lobby, tasteful decorations, a holiday party planned at some exclusive venue Emily had never heard of. The dress code was cocktail attire. Emily didn't own anything that qualified as cocktail attire. She stood in her apartment that Saturday, looking at her closet. The navy blouse she'd worn to death, black pants, work clothes, nothing appropriate for a party where everyone else would be wearing designer labels. Sophie appeared in the doorway. "Mama, what's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Just trying to figure out what to wear to a work party." Sophie climbed onto the bed, thoughtful. Then she went to her piggy bank, a ceramic elephant Emily's mother had given her before she died. Sophie shook out coins and crumpled dollar bills. "You can use my money," Sophie said seriously, "for a pretty dress." Emily's throat closed. She pulled her daughter into her lap. "Baby, no. That's your money. But you need a dress." "I'll figure something out." That evening, Emily took the subway to a consignment shop in Brooklyn, found a black dress that fit well enough, marked down because of a small stain on the hem that she could hide. $35. Still more than she wanted to spend, but less than anywhere else. The night of the party, Mrs. Chen came over to watch Sophie. She took one look at Emily and shook her head. "You need jewelry and better shoes." "This is what I have." Mrs. Chen disappeared into her own apartment, came back with a pearl necklace. "My mother's. You borrow." "Mrs. Chen, I can't. You can. You will." She fastened it around Emily's neck. "There. Now you look like you belong." The party was at a rooftop venue in Tribeca. Emily arrived fashionably late because she'd been too nervous to show up on time. Stepped out of the elevator into a space that seemed designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan glittering below. A bar serving cocktails that probably cost more than her dress. She grabbed a glass of wine for something to hold and tried to blend into the edges of the room. "Emily!" Lauren waved from across the room, standing with a cluster of analysts. Emily made her way over, grateful for a familiar face. "You look great," Lauren said. "Is that vintage?" "Something like that." Emily sipped her wine. It was good, too good. She made a mental note to make it last all night. The group talked about work, about year-end bonuses, about vacation plans. Emily listened more than she spoke. These people were planning ski trips to Aspen, beach houses in the Hamptons. She was planning to keep her electricity on and maybe, if she was careful, buy Sophie a decent Christmas present. "Excuse me." She slipped away to the bathroom, needing a minute alone. The bathroom was as excessive as the rest of the venue. Marble everything, flowers, monogrammed hand towels. Emily leaned against the counter and took a breath. The door opened. A woman walked in, mid-30s, stunning in a way that took work and money. Her dress probably cost more than Emily made in a month. She glanced at Emily. "You're the new analyst everyone's talking about, the one who caught the Ohio fraud." "Emily Carter." She offered her hand. The woman shook it. Her grip was cold. "Rebecca Ashford, Senior Vice President." "Nice to meet you." Rebecca studied her reflection in the mirror, adjusting her hair. "How are you finding Hayes Capital? Must be quite an adjustment from—" She paused, letting the sentence hang. "Where did you work before?" "Bookkeeping. Small businesses mostly." "How interesting." Rebecca's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Nathaniel does love his charity cases." The words landed like a slap. Emily felt her face flush. "I was hired because I'm qualified." "Of course you were." Rebecca's tone said the opposite. "Just seems convenient, doesn't it? You return his wallet, suddenly you have a job you're not quite prepared for. People talk." "Let them talk." "Oh, they will, especially when you're invited to the partners' dinner next week. That's employees only, you know. Significant others aren't typically included." Rebecca's smile sharpened. "But I'm sure Nathaniel has his reasons." She left before Emily could respond. Emily stood there, hands gripping the marble counter, trying to breathe through the humiliation. Charity case. The words echoed. Was that what people thought? That she was here because Nathaniel Hayes felt sorry for her? She wanted to leave, walk out of the party, quit the job, go back to her small, safe life where at least she knew what to expect. Instead, she fixed her lipstick, straightened her borrowed necklace, and walked back into the party. Nathaniel Hayes was standing by the windows, talking with Charles Wright and another senior partner. He saw her across the room. Their eyes met. Emily looked away first. She made it through another hour of small talk and forced smiles before finally claiming exhaustion and slipping out early. The subway ride home was long and cold. She picked up Sophie from Mrs. Chen's, carried her sleeping daughter upstairs, and sat in the dark living room for a long time. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I saw you leave early. Everything okay?" NH. Emily stared at it. Somehow Hayes had gotten her personal number. Somehow he'd noticed her leaving. She should feel grateful for his concern. Instead, she felt exposed. She typed, "Fine, just tired. See you Monday." His response came quickly. "If Rebecca said something to you, ignore her. She's been passed over for promotion twice and takes it out on anyone she perceives as competition." So he had seen them in the bathroom. Or guessed. Or someone had told him. Emily didn't respond. Monday morning brought a surprise. A manila envelope on her desk with her name written in elegant script. Inside, a formal invitation to the annual partners' dinner. Black tie event. Guest of the CEO. Lauren appeared at Emily's shoulder. "Holy shit! You're his +1. I don't think it means..." "Emily, he's the CEO. Everything means something. We're not... There's nothing..." But Emily couldn't finish the sentence because she didn't know how to explain the strange relationship that had developed. Professional, but not quite. Personal, but not really. Something undefined that existed in the space between gratitude and genuine connection. "You need to be careful," Lauren said quietly. "Office romances are complicated. Office romances with the boss are career suicide." "It's not a romance." "Then what is it?" Emily didn't have an answer. That afternoon, she went to Nathaniel's office. His assistant waved her through without question, which felt significant. Hayes was on a phone call but gestured for her to sit. She waited, looking around the space. It was surprisingly sparse. Expensive furniture, yes, but minimal decoration. A single photo on his desk, a little boy with dark hair and his father's eyes. "Marcus." Hayes hung up. "Emily, what can I do for you?" "The invitation to the partners' dinner." She set it on his desk. "I can't accept." "Why not?" "Because people already think I'm here because you feel sorry for me. Because showing up as your date will just confirm their suspicions." "It's not a date. It's a professional courtesy. I invite a different team member every year." "Do you really?" Hayes hesitated. "No, but I should have been. And I'm starting now." "Nathaniel. When did you start calling me Nathaniel?" Emily blinked. She had, she realized. Somewhere along the way, in her head at least, he'd stopped being Mr. Hayes. "I shouldn't have. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I prefer it." He leaned back in his chair. "Come to the dinner, Emily. Not as my date. As my colleague. As someone whose perspective I value." "Why me?" "Because you'll tell me the truth. About what you see, what you think, what you notice. Everyone else at that dinner will be performing, trying to impress me or outmaneuver each other. You'll just observe and be honest." He paused. "I need that. More than you know." Emily thought about Rebecca's cold smile, about Lauren's warning, about the careful line she'd been walking since the moment she accepted this job. "One condition," she said. "Name it. Stop treating me differently than anyone else here. No special invitations. No checking in on me. If I fail, let me fail on my own merit. If I succeed, let me succeed the same way." Nathaniel studied her for a long moment. "You think I'm giving you an unfair advantage." "I think people believe you are, and that's almost as damaging." "Fair enough." He stood, extended his hand. "Deal. From now on, you're just another analyst. Sink or swim on your own." Emily shook his hand. His grip was warm, familiar. She pulled away quickly. "Does that mean I should skip the dinner?" she asked. "It means you should come because you're a damn good analyst who deserves to be there, not because I invited you." He smiled slightly. "But yes, please come. The company will bore me to death without someone interesting to talk to." Emily left his office more confused than when she'd entered. The dinner was 3 weeks away. In the meantime, work consumed everything. The year-end rush hit Hayes Capital like a storm. Portfolios needed rebalancing. Tax strategies required finalizing. Clients expected updates. Emily worked longer hours than ever, often not getting home until Sophie was already asleep. Mrs. Chen became a constant presence, feeding Sophie dinner, helping with homework, putting her to bed when Emily's subway was delayed or a meeting ran late. Emily paid her what she could, but it never felt like enough. "You're building something," Mrs. Chen said one night when Emily tried to apologize for the 100th time. "For Sophie, for yourself. This is temporary struggle for long-term gain." Emily wanted to believe that. December 20th, the night of the partners' dinner, Emily stood in her apartment looking at the dress she'd bought. Black. Simple. The best she could afford, but still obviously not in the same league as what everyone else would be wearing. Sophie watched from the couch, eyes wide. "You look like a princess, Mama." "I look like someone pretending to be a princess." "No." Sophie came over, serious. "You look brave." Emily knelt down, eye level with her daughter. "When did you get so smart?" "I'm 6. I've been smart my whole life." Emily laughed, kissed her forehead. "Be good for Mrs. Chen." "I'm always good." The dinner was at a private club in Midtown, the kind of place that didn't advertise because if you needed to ask, you didn't belong. Emily gave her name at the entrance, was checked off a list, and escorted to a room that dripped with old money, wood paneling, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably belonged in museums. She was early, too early. Only a handful of people had arrived, all of them in clusters, all of them clearly comfortable in this environment. Emily headed for the bar, ordered wine, tried to look like she had a reason to be there. "Emily?" She turned. Nathaniel Hayes stood behind her, and she forgot how to breathe for a second. He was in a tuxedo. Of course he was. But seeing him like this, polished, powerful, every inch the billionaire, reminded her of the distance between their worlds. "You came," he said. "You invited me. You look—" He paused. "You look lovely. You look uncomfortable." He laughed, actually laughed. "I hate these things. Necessary evil." "Then why host one?" "Tradition. Expectations. The same reason we do most things we don't want to do." He gestured to the room filling with people. "Come on, let me introduce you around before everyone gets too drunk to remember your name." The next 2 hours were a blur. Hayes walked Emily through the room, introducing her to partners and major clients. She shook hands, made small talk, tried to remember names and faces. Some people were warm. Others looked at her like they were trying to solve a puzzle, figure out who she was, and why she mattered. Dinner was at a long table, seated with careful political calculation. Emily found herself between a senior partner named Gregory and his wife, Catherine. They were polite but distant, the kind of people who'd perfected the art of conversation that said nothing. Across the table, Hayes was flanked by Charles Wright and Rebecca Ashford. Emily watched Rebecca lean in close, touching Nathaniel's arm as she spoke, laughing at something he said. Performing, just like he'd predicted. The food was exquisite and Emily could barely taste it. After dinner, people drifted into smaller groups. Emily found herself near the windows, looking out at Manhattan's glowing grid, when Hayes appeared beside her. "Surviving?" he asked quietly. "Barely." "You're doing fine." "Better than fine." He followed her gaze out the window. "When I first started attending these dinners, I was terrified, convinced everyone could tell I didn't belong." "You built this company. Of course you belong." "I built it from nothing. These people—" He gestured to the room. "Half of them come from money, real money, old money. They look at me and see someone who got lucky." Emily looked at him, surprised. "I didn't know that." "Most people don't. I've gotten very good at hiding where I came from." He smiled, but it was sad. "My father was a mechanic. My mother cleaned houses. I went to state school on scholarships and loans I'm still paying off." "But you're a billionaire." "Now. But I remember what it felt like to count change for groceries, to choose between rent and electricity, to feel like everyone around you was playing a game you didn't know the rules to." He met her eyes. "That's why I hired you, Emily. Not charity, recognition." Before she could respond, Rebecca appeared. "Nathaniel, sorry to interrupt, but Senator Crawford wants to speak with you about the infrastructure bill." "Of course." Hayes turned to Emily. "Will you excuse me?" She nodded, watched him walk away, Rebecca's hand on his elbow, guiding him like she owned him. Emily left shortly after, claiming an early morning. No one tried to stop her. The subway ride home was empty, the car rattling through dark tunnels. Emily leaned her head against the window and tried to make sense of the evening, of Hayes's confession, of the way her chest tightened when Rebecca touched his arm. She was falling for him. The realization hit like cold water. Somewhere between the wallet and the job offer and the quiet conversations, she'd started caring about Nathaniel Hayes in a way that was absolutely, catastrophically stupid. He was her boss, a billionaire, a man who lived in a world she was only visiting, and she was a single mother barely keeping her head above water, with a daughter depending on her and a job she couldn't afford to lose. This couldn't happen. Emily got home just before midnight. Mrs. Chen had fallen asleep on the couch. Emily woke her gently, paid her for the evening, waited until she was safely in her own apartment before checking on Sophie. Her daughter was sprawled across the bed, one arm thrown over her head, completely at peace. Emily sat beside her in the dark and made herself a promise. She would focus on the work, excel at her job, provide for Sophie, build the life they deserved, and she would stop thinking about Nathaniel Hayes as anything other than her employer. It was a good plan. It lasted exactly 4 days. Christmas Eve fell on a Tuesday that year, which meant Hayes Capital closed early. Emily worked until 3, finished year-end reports that could have waited until January, but gave her an excuse to avoid thinking about the holiday. Sophie was spending the day with Mrs. Chen, making cookies and watching movies, safe and happy, and oblivious to her mother's careful budgeting that had produced exactly 3 presents under their small plastic tree. Emily was packing up her desk when her computer pinged. Internal message from Nathaniel Hayes. My office, please. Her stomach dropped. Getting summoned on Christmas Eve couldn't be good. She grabbed her notebook, tried to think of what she might have done wrong, and headed upstairs to the executive floor. Hayes's assistant had already left for the day. The floor was quiet, most offices dark. Emily knocked on his door. Come in. He was standing by the window, jacket off, tie loosened, looking at the city below. Not like a CEO, just like a tired man at the end of a long year. You wanted to see me? Emily stayed near the door, professional distance. Hayes turned. Close the door. She did, her heart picking up speed. I need to show you something, he said, and I need you to tell me if I'm losing my mind. He gestured to his desk where financial reports were spread across the surface like a crime scene. Emily moved closer, recognizing Hayes Capital's internal accounting documents. What am I looking at? Third quarter reconciliation. Victor Lang handled it personally. Hayes pointed to a column of numbers. Notice anything? Emily studied the figures. At first glance, everything looked normal. Then she started comparing line items to the source documentation Hayes had pulled up on his computer screen. The numbers didn't match. Small discrepancies. A few thousand here, 10,000 there. Easy to miss if you weren't looking carefully. But they were there, consistent, following a pattern. These transfers, Emily said slowly, tracing a line with her finger. They're being routed through a subsidiary account before hitting the main fund. Why? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Who's Victor Lang? Hayes's jaw tightened. My business partner. We started this company together 8 years ago. He's CFO, my closest friend. He paused. Or I thought he was. Emily pulled over a chair, sat down without asking permission, and started going through the documents methodically. Hayes watched in silence as she worked, making notes, cross-referencing accounts, building a timeline. An hour passed. Then another. Emily, it's Christmas Eve. You should go home. Give me 10 more minutes. She found it buried in an expense report from September. A payment to a consulting firm she didn't recognize. Large enough to notice, small enough to justify. She Googled the company name. No website, no public records, just a P.O. box registration in Delaware. This consulting firm, she said, have they done any actual work for Hayes Capital? Nathaniel leaned over her shoulder, close enough that she could smell his cologne. I've never heard of them, but the payment was approved by Victor Lang. Emily pulled up more reports, searching for the company name. Found 3 more payments over the past 6 months, each one just under the threshold that would require board approval. How much total? Emily did the math. 240,000. That son of a bitch. Hayes's voice was quiet, but fury ran underneath like electrical current. He's skimming. We need more evidence before we can say that for certain. This could be legitimate. It's not. Hayes straightened, running a hand through his hair. I know Victor. I know how he thinks. If he's hiding payments, he's stealing. Emily looked up at him. Why are you showing me this? Why not take it to Charles or the legal team? Because I don't know who else might be involved. Victor's been here from the beginning. He has relationships with everyone, access to everything. Hayes met her eyes. You're the only person in this building I'm certain I can trust. The weight of that statement settled between them. What do you need me to do? Emily asked. Help me build the case. Quietly. No one can know what we're looking for. He paused. Can you do that? On top of your regular work? Emily thought about Sophie waiting at home, about the careful balance she'd been maintaining, about all the reasons she should say no. Yes, she said. I can do that. They worked until almost 7, Emily taking detailed notes while Hayes explained the company's financial structure and where Victor would have the access to manipulate records. By the time they finished, Emily had a roadmap for the investigation. I should go, she said finally, gathering her things. Sophie's waiting. Emily. Hayes stopped her at the door. Thank you. I know this is asking a lot, especially during the holidays. It's my job. No, your job is financial analysis. This is, he trailed off. This is something else. And I'm grateful. Emily nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and left before the moment could become something more complicated than it already was. The subway was packed with last-minute shoppers, everyone carrying bags and wearing forced cheer. Emily stood pressed against the doors, thinking about Victor Lang and hidden payments and the way Nathaniel's voice had broken when he said, my closest friend. She picked up Sophie from Mrs. Chen's at 8. Her daughter was sugared up and chattering about the cookies they'd made, about the movie they'd watched, about everything except the fact that her mother had missed another evening. I'm sorry, baby, Emily said as they climbed the stairs to their apartment. Work ran late. It's okay, Mama. Mrs. Chen says you're working hard so we can have a better life. The casual acceptance in Sophie's voice hurt more than anger would have. They spent Christmas morning on the couch, Sophie delighting over her 3 carefully chosen presents, while Emily drank coffee and tried not to calculate how many more Christmases would look exactly like this. Small, careful, never quite enough. Her phone buzzed around noon, text from Nathaniel. Merry Christmas. Hope you and Sophie are having a good day. Emily stared at it. Wondered if he was alone in his penthouse with Marcus, if his Christmas felt as hollow as hers did abundant. She typed back, Merry Christmas. We are. Hope you and Marcus are too. His response came quickly. He's with his grandparents this week. I'm working. Of course he was. Emily looked at Sophie, now building an elaborate fort with the new block Santa had brought, and made a decision she'd probably regret. You shouldn't be alone on Christmas. Want to come over for leftover takeout? It's not fancy, but it's food. She hit send before she could overthink it. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Are you sure? We're watching cartoons and eating Chinese food from yesterday. No pressure. What's your address again? Emily sent it, then looked around her apartment with fresh panic. It was clean but shabby, small but lived in, exactly the kind of place that would remind Nathaniel Hayes of the massive gap between their lives. Too late now. He arrived an hour later wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than her couch, but at least wasn't a suit. He looked younger like this, more human. Sophie stared at him from behind Emily's legs. Sophie, this is Mr. Hayes. He's Mama's boss. You can call me Nathaniel, he said, crouching down to her level. Is that a fort? Sophie nodded, shy. Can I see it? She took his hand, impossibly trusting, and led him to her block creation. Nathaniel sat on the floor without hesitation, listening seriously as Sophie explained the architecture. Emily stood in her tiny kitchen, reheating Chinese food and watching a billionaire play blocks with her daughter, and felt something dangerous shift in her chest. They ate on the couch, paper plates because Emily's actual dishes were mismatched and chipped. Nathaniel didn't seem to notice or care. He asked Sophie about school, about her favorite subjects, about the fort's defensive capabilities. He made her laugh, made her comfortable, made Emily realize how long it had been since Sophie had a man in her life who paid attention like this. After lunch, Sophie fell asleep on the couch, worn out from excitement and sugar. Emily covered her with a blanket, then sat in the armchair across from Nathaniel. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. Thank you for inviting me. He looked at Sophie. She's great. Smart kid. She is. Looks like you. Emily felt her cheeks warm. She has her father's stubbornness. I'm sorry. About your husband. Nathaniel's voice was gentle. What happened? Emily hadn't talked about David in months, but something about the day, about the unexpected intimacy of Nathaniel sitting in her living room, made the words come easier. Drunk driver. David was on his way home from work. Never saw it coming. She looked down at her hands. Sophie was 3. She barely remembers him now. Sometimes she'll see a photo and ask questions, but mostly, she trailed off. Marcus doesn't remember his mother at all, Nathaniel said. She died when he was 2. Cancer, fast and brutal. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I think that's harder somehow, having nothing to hold on to. How do you do it? Balance everything? Badly. He smiled without humor. I have nannies and housekeepers and people who manage every aspect of Marcus's life. I see him for an hour in the morning and maybe 2 hours at night if I'm lucky. His grandparents take him most weekends because I'm working. I'm giving him everything except what he actually needs. Which is? A parent who's present, who knows his teachers' names and what his favorite lunch is and whether he's scared of the dark. Nathaniel rubbed his face. I'm failing him, every single day. Emily had never heard him sound like this. Vulnerable, raw. You're doing your best, she said. That's all any of us can do. Is it enough? I don't know. I ask myself the same question every night. They sat in silence for a while, watching Sophie sleep, both of them trapped in the same impossible equation of parenthood and survival, and never quite measuring up. I should go, Nathaniel said eventually. Let you have your evening. Emily walked him to the door. He paused in the threshold. Emily, what I asked you to do. The investigation into Victor. You can say no. It's not fair to put that on you. I already said yes. You can change your mind. She looked at him, really looked, saw the exhaustion and worry and betrayal he was carrying, saw the man underneath the billionaire. I'm not going to change my mind, she said. We'll figure this out. Something passed between them. Understanding, trust, something more that neither of them was ready to name. After he left, Emily stood in her quiet apartment and tried to convince herself she hadn't just made everything infinitely more complicated. The investigation became her shadow life. By day, Emily performed her regular duties, analyzing deals, building models, attending meetings. By night, after Sophie was asleep, she dug through Hayes Capital's financial records, looking for the thread that would unravel Victor Lang's deception. She found it 3 weeks into January. The consulting firm was a shell company, registered to an offshore account that traced back to Victor's brother-in-law. The payments weren't consulting fees, they were theft, dressed up in corporate paperwork and hidden in plain sight. But that was just the beginning. Emily followed the money further, stayed up until 3 a.m. on a Tuesday cross-referencing accounts, and discovered something worse. Victor wasn't just stealing, he was manipulating fund performance, showing clients inflated returns while pocketing the difference. Small enough amounts that individual clients wouldn't notice, but across hundreds of accounts, it added up to millions. She documented everything, built spreadsheets, created timelines, gathered evidence that would hold up in court. On a Friday in late January, Emily walked into Nathaniel's office with a folder that would destroy his oldest friendship. He knew before she said anything. You found something. Yes. How bad? Emily set the folder on his desk. Bad. He's been doing this for at least 2 years, maybe longer. Nathaniel opened it, read in silence. His face went pale, then red, then carefully blank. $6 million, he said finally. He stole $6 million. That we can prove. There might be more. From our clients. From people who trusted us. Nathaniel stood, paced to the window. I'm going to kill him. You're going to fire him and press charges. After I kill him. Emily almost smiled. We need to do this carefully. He has relationships with major clients. If we handle this wrong, it could tank the company. I don't care about the company right now. I care about... Nathaniel stopped, his hand in a fist against the glass. He was at my wedding. He held Marcus when he was born. He sat with me in the hospital the night Anna died, and he didn't leave until I made him go home. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. You did what I asked. He turned to face her. What's our next move? We take this to the board, to legal. We build a case before we confront him. When? Next week. I need to verify a few more details. Nathaniel nodded, looked down at the folder again. Emily, if this goes sideways, if Victor has other people involved, if this turns into something bigger, I need you to know you can walk away. I'll understand. I'm not walking away. This could get ugly. I know. Emily stood. I also know you need someone in your corner who isn't afraid of the mess. That's me. He looked at her like he was seeing something new. Why are you doing this? Because I care about you, Emily thought. Because somewhere in the past 3 months you've become more than my boss, and I don't know how to put that particular demon back in its box. Because it's the right thing to do, she said instead. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Emily spent the week preparing, rehearsing her presentation, anticipating questions. She barely slept, barely ate. Sophie complained that Mama was distracted, and Mrs. Chen asked if everything was okay, and Emily lied and said everything was fine. Wednesday night, Emily was working late at the office when her desk phone rang. Internal line, Victor Lang. Her heart stopped. Emily Carter, she answered, keeping her voice steady. Ms. Carter, Victor Lang, sorry to bother you so late, but I need some clarification on the quarterly expense reports you filed. Could you come up to my office? This was it. He knew. Somehow he'd figured out what she was doing. Of course. Give me 5 minutes. Emily hung up, sat very still. Then she called Nathaniel's cell. He answered on the first ring. Emily? Victor just called me to his office. He wants to discuss expense reports. Silence. Then, don't go alone. I'm coming back. You don't need to be... I'm 10 minutes away. Wait for me. He hung up before she could argue. Emily waited, watching the clock. Her hands were shaking. She made them stop. Nathaniel arrived in 9 minutes, still in his coat from outside. Ready? No. Good. That means you're smart. He started toward the elevator. Let me do the talking. Victor's office was on the 20th floor, corner space with views and artwork, and all the trappings of success built on lies. He looked up when they entered, and Emily saw the calculation in his eyes. Nathaniel, I didn't know you were still here. I'm always here. What did you need from Emily? Victor smiled, but it was cold. Just wanted to clarify some expense categorizations. But since you're both here, perhaps we should discuss the real issue. Which is? The fact that your new analyst has been accessing confidential financial records without authorization. Going through accounts she has no business viewing. Victor leaned back in his chair. That's grounds for termination, Nathaniel. You know the protocol. I authorized it, Nathaniel said flatly. Did you? Not a question. Why? Because I asked her to investigate irregularities I noticed in our third quarter reconciliation. The temperature in the room dropped. Victor's smile faded. What irregularities? The ones you created. The shell company payments, the manipulated client returns. $6 million in theft that you thought no one would notice. Nathaniel's voice was ice. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Victor stood slowly. You have no proof. I have all the proof I need. Transaction records, account statements, documentation that traces directly back to you. Nathaniel stepped forward. Tomorrow morning, the board meets. I'm presenting Emily's findings. By tomorrow afternoon, you'll be fired and facing criminal charges. You can't prove anything. Yes, I can, because Emily is smarter than both of us, and she found everything you tried to hide. Nathaniel's voice dropped. The only question is whether you resign tonight and make this quiet, or whether I destroy you publicly tomorrow. Victor's face went red. You self-righteous bastard! You think you're so much better than everyone else. You climbed your way up from nothing, and now you judge everyone else for trying to survive. Survive? You stole millions from our clients. Our clients are billionaires who won't even notice. They have more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes while people like... He gestured sharply at Emily. While people like her are breaking themselves to get by. The system is rigged, Nathaniel. I just learned how to play it. By stealing, by taking what was owed to me, I built this company with you. 50-50 partners, remember? But you're the one on magazine covers. You're the one everyone calls a genius. I'm just the CFO who makes your brilliant ideas actually work. Victor's voice shook with rage. So yes, I took some money. Compensation for being invisible. Emily watched this unfold with a sick feeling in her stomach. She'd known the theft was real, but hearing Victor's justification made it worse somehow. Made it personal. You're fired, Nathaniel said quietly. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. If you contest this, I'll make sure every firm on Wall Street knows exactly what you did. You'll regret this. I already do. I regret trusting you. I regret not seeing what you were years ago. Nathaniel pulled out his phone. I'm calling security now. You have 2 minutes to clear your personal items. Victor looked at Emily. You did this. You ruined everything. No, Emily said, finding her voice. You did this. I just found it. He left without another word, 2 security guards appearing to escort him out. Emily and Nathaniel stood in the empty office, listening to the retreating footsteps. That went well, Emily said finally. Nathaniel laughed. Actually laughed, but it sounded broken. I just ended an 8-year friendship. He ended it when he started stealing. I know. Nathaniel sank into Victor's chair, looking lost. Doesn't make it hurt less. Emily moved closer, put her hand on his shoulder without thinking. I'm sorry. He covered her hand with his. His palm was warm. You have nothing to be sorry for. You saved this company. They stayed like that for a moment too long. Then Emily pulled away, professional distance reasserting itself. I should go home. Sophie's with Mrs. Chen and it's late. Emily. Nathaniel stood. Tomorrow, after the board meeting, everyone's going to know what you did. You'll be famous in this building, probably famous in the industry, the analyst who caught a multi-million-dollar fraud. I don't want to be famous. I know, but it's coming anyway. He paused. Are you ready for that? Emily thought about Rebecca Ashford's cold smile, about Lauren's warnings, about all the ways this could complicate her carefully constructed life. No, she said honestly, but I did what needed to be done. The rest I'll figure out as I go. The board meeting the next morning was brutal. Emily presented her findings to a room full of powerful men and women who looked at her with varying degrees of shock, respect, and suspicion. Charles Wright asked pointed questions. Sarah Chen looked impressed. The company's lead attorney took copious notes. When it was over, the board voted unanimously to terminate Victor Lang and pursue criminal charges. Emily walked out of that conference room knowing everything had changed. By noon, the entire office knew. People stopped talking when she walked by. Some looked at her with admiration, others with wariness. She'd proven she could find secrets, and everyone had secrets. Lauren appeared at her desk around 3. You're trending. What? Industry Twitter. Junior analyst at Hayes Capital exposes CFO fraud. You're getting job offers in your LinkedIn messages. Emily checked her phone. Sure enough, 17 new LinkedIn requests, all from recruiters and competing firms. Her inbox was exploding. I don't want other offers, she said. Good, because Nathaniel would probably burn down Manhattan if you left. Lauren perched on Emily's desk. Rebecca's been in his office all morning. Damage control. Clients are freaking out. How bad? Bad enough that we might lose some accounts, but not as bad as it would have been if the fraud had continued. Lauren studied her. You knew you'd make enemies doing this, right? Doing the right thing isn't supposed to make enemies. It always does. That's how you know it was actually right. The afternoon brought an emergency all-staff meeting. Nathaniel stood at the front of the room and addressed the company with the kind of leadership that reminded Emily why he'd built an empire from nothing. By now you've all heard about Victor Lang's termination. I want to be clear. Hayes Capital has zero tolerance for fraud. We've already contacted affected clients and are implementing new oversight measures. This company's reputation was built on trust, and I will do whatever it takes to maintain that trust. He didn't mention Emily by name, didn't need to. Everyone knew. That evening, Emily was packing up to leave when Nathaniel appeared at her desk. Walk with me? She followed him to his office. He closed the door, leaned against his desk, and for the first time since she'd met him, Nathaniel Hayes looked completely exhausted. We lost 4 clients today, he said. 3 more are considering pulling their accounts. Emily's stomach sank. I'm sorry. Don't be. We would have lost all of them eventually when the fraud came out. This way we controlled the narrative. He rubbed his eyes. Charles thinks we'll recover. Sarah's already working on rebuilding trust, but it's going to be a rough few months. What can I do? You've done enough. More than enough. He looked at her. Emily, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay. Why did you really help me with this? The truth. Emily could lie. Should lie. Keep it professional and safe. Instead, she told the truth. Because you asked me to. Because I knew it mattered to you. Because somewhere in the past 4 months, you stopped being just my boss and became... She trailed off, unsure how to finish. Became what? Someone I care about, she said quietly. Someone whose happiness matters to me in a way it probably shouldn't. The silence stretched. Then Nathaniel crossed the space between them in 2 steps and kissed her. Emily's first thought was that this was a mistake. Her second thought was that she didn't care. She kissed him back, her hands finding his shoulders, his arms wrapping around her waist, and for one perfect moment the world narrowed to just this. The pressure of his mouth against hers, the solid warmth of his body, the way her heart was trying to escape her chest. He pulled back first, breathing hard. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have... Don't apologize. Emily, I'm your boss. This is complicated, I know. She stepped back, trying to find air. But it's also real. Whatever this is between us, it's real. Nathaniel ran his hand through his hair, the gesture familiar now. I don't know how to do this, navigate this. I haven't, since Anna died, we don't have to figure it out right now. Yes, we do. Because if we're doing this, we're doing it right. No hiding, no sneaking around. His voice was firm. I won't make you the subject of office gossip. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we see where this goes. Carefully. Honestly. He reached for her hand. But first, I need to know if that's what you want. Because once we cross this line, Emily, there's no going back. Emily thought about all the reasons to say no. The power dynamic, the office politics, the risk to her career, to Sophie's stability, to everything she'd worked so hard to build. Then she thought about the way he'd sat on her floor playing blocks with her daughter, the way he'd trusted her with his company's biggest crisis, the way he looked at her like she was something precious. I want this, she said. Whatever this becomes, I want to try. Nathaniel smiled, really smiled. Okay then, okay. He kissed her again, gentler this time, like a promise instead of a question. Emily left his office 20 minutes later, her lips still tingling, her heart still racing, knowing she'd just walked off the edge of something that would either save her or destroy her completely. They kept it quiet for exactly 9 days. Not secret, like Nathaniel had promised. Just private. Emily still worked at her desk on 19, still attended meetings and filed reports, and acted like the world hadn't tilted on its axis. Nathaniel still ran the company, still dealt with the fallout from Victor's termination, still kept professional distance during office hours. But 3 evenings that week, after Sophie was asleep and Mrs. Chen had gone home, Emily's phone would buzz with a simple text. You awake? And she'd grab her jacket and meet him at a quiet restaurant in Brooklyn where no one from their world would think to look. They'd sit in corner booths and talk about everything except work, about Marcus's struggles with math homework and Sophie's newfound obsession with dinosaurs, about Nathaniel's childhood in Cleveland and Emily's in the Bronx, about Anna and David and the strange guilt that came with moving forward when the people you'd loved were frozen in the past. On the 9th day, Rebecca Ashford walked past Emily's desk and dropped a tabloid magazine on her keyboard. The cover photo showed Nathaniel leaving a restaurant, Emily visible through the window behind him. The headline read, Hayes Capital CEO's Mystery Woman, From Wallet to Romance? Emily's blood went cold. Congratulations, Rebecca said, her smile sharp as broken glass. You made page 6. Lauren appeared the moment Rebecca left. Emily, oh shit. How bad is it? Lauren grabbed the magazine, flipped to the article. Her face went pale. They have photos from 3 different nights. They connected you to the fraud investigation. They're calling you the woman who captured the billionaire's heart and saved his company. She looked up. They also dug up your background, David's accident, your financial struggles, everything. Emily felt sick. Sophie. What? They mentioned Sophie? Emily grabbed the magazine, scanned the article with shaking hands. There. A paragraph about Emily's 6-year-old daughter, about being a struggling single mother before landing at Hayes Capital. Nothing terrible, but enough. Enough to make her daughter part of this story. I need to talk to Nathaniel. She was halfway to the elevator when her phone rang. Nathaniel. My office. Now. He didn't sound angry. Worse, he sounded resigned. Emily took the elevator to 20, ignored the stares from people who'd clearly seen the article, and walked into Nathaniel's office without knocking. He was standing by the window, holding the same magazine. His jaw was tight. I'm handling it, he said before she could speak. PR is drafting a statement. We're threatening legal action for invasion of privacy. They mentioned Sophie. I know. He turned to face her. Emily, I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. Should have realized someone would be watching. You said we'd do this right. No hiding. I also said I wouldn't make you the subject of office gossip. He gestured to the magazine. This is worse than gossip. Emily sank into a chair. What do we do? We have options. I can issue a statement saying we're just colleagues, friends, that the photos are misleading. Lying, you mean? Protecting you. From what? The truth? Emily looked at him. Nathaniel, everyone's going to believe this anyway. Denying it just makes us look like we're hiding something shameful. So what are you suggesting? Tell the truth. We're seeing each other. It's new. It's private. End of story. Nathaniel moved to his desk, bracing his hands against it. You don't understand what you're asking. Once we confirm this publicly, every aspect of your life becomes fair game. Reporters will follow you. Photograph Sophie. Dig into your finances, your past, your family. They'll interview people you went to high school with and ask them to comment on whether you're a gold digger. I'm not a gold digger. I know that. But they'll write it anyway. They'll make you the villain in a story where a poor single mother seduced her billionaire boss for money and security. His voice was rough. I've seen it happen before. To friends, colleagues. The woman always becomes the villain. Emily stood, crossed to him, made him look at her. I'm not ashamed of this, she said quietly. Of us. Are you? No, but I'm terrified of what it'll cost you. Then let me decide what I'm willing to pay. He searched her face. You're sure? No, but I'm sure about you, about this. She took his hand. So let's stop hiding and deal with whatever comes. Nathaniel pulled her close, pressed his forehead against hers. You're braver than I am. I'm really not. I'm just tired of being afraid. The statement went out at noon. Brief, professional. Nathaniel Hayes and Emily Carter have recently begun a personal relationship. We ask for privacy as we navigate this new development. No further comments at this time. The internet exploded. Emily's phone became unusable within an hour. Texts from reporters, calls from unknown numbers, LinkedIn messages from people she'd never met wanting to congratulate her. Her Instagram, which she'd barely used, suddenly had 2,000 new followers. Lauren appeared at her desk around 2. You need to go home. There are photographers outside. You're joking. I wish I was. 3 of them, waiting to get a shot of you leaving the building. Emily put her head in her hands. This is insane. This is dating a billionaire. Lauren's voice softened. For what it's worth, I think he's lucky. You're good for him. Tell that to the internet. She checked Twitter against her better judgment. The takes ranged from supportive to vicious. Some people thought it was romantic, the return of the wallet leading to true love. Others thought Emily was a calculated social climber who'd manipulated her way into Nathaniel's life. The worst comments focused on her appearance, her background, her worth compared to his late wife. Emily closed the app before she could read more. Nathaniel's assistant called around 4. Mr. Hayes has arranged a car to take you home. It's waiting in the garage. Private entrance. That's not necessary. He insisted. The car was a black sedan with tinted windows and a driver who didn't make small talk. Emily sat in the back, watching the city slide past, and tried to process the fact that she now needed a car service to avoid photographers. Mrs. Chen met her at the building entrance, Sophie's hand in hers. Mama! Sophie ran forward. Emily caught her, held her tight. Hey, baby, how was school? A lady tried to take my picture at pickup. Mrs. Chen yelled at her. Emily looked at Mrs. Chen over Sophie's head. The older woman's face was grim. She said she was from a newspaper, Mrs. Chen said quietly. Asked Sophie questions about you and Mr. Hayes. I told her if she didn't leave, I would call the police. Emily felt rage rise hot and sharp in her chest. Going after her was one thing. Going after her child was unforgivable. Thank you, she managed, for protecting her. That evening, after Sophie was in bed, Emily called Nathaniel. They approached Sophie, she said without preamble. Silence. Then, where? School pickup. Mrs. Chen scared them off, but I'm hiring security. Nathaniel, no, not negotiable. If they're going after Sophie, you need protection. His voice was steel. I'm sending someone tomorrow morning. He'll stay at a distance, but he'll be there, for both of you. This is too much. This is my fault. Let me fix it. Emily wanted to argue, but the thought of someone approaching Sophie again made the decision easy. Okay, she said, but I'm paying him back. Emily, I mean it. This is a loan. I'll pay you back. He sighed. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. You say that like it's a bad thing. It's not. It's one of the things He stopped, started again. It's one of the things I admire about you. The almost confession hung in the air between them. Nathaniel, Emily said softly, what are we doing? I don't know, but I don't want to stop. Me neither. They stayed on the phone for another hour, talking about nothing and everything until Emily's eyes were heavy and her heart felt lighter than it had all day. The security appeared the next morning as promised. A quiet man in his 50s named James, who looked like someone's accountant but moved like former military. He kept his distance, but Emily knew he was there, and somehow that made the photographers outside her building less terrifying. Work became surreal. People treated Emily differently now, some with newfound respect, others with thinly veiled resentment. The CFO position was still vacant after Victor's termination, and rumors circulated that Emily was being considered despite having been at the company less than 3 months. That's not happening, she told Lauren during lunch. I'm not qualified. You caught a multi-million-dollar fraud. You're more qualified than half the people applying. I'm also dating the CEO, which disqualifies me from any promotion. Does it, though? Or does everyone just assume it does? Emily didn't have an answer for that. February brought Valentine's Day, which Emily had been dreading. But Nathaniel surprised her by keeping it simple. Dinner at her apartment after Sophie was asleep, takeout from a place that didn't require reservations or photographers, conversation on the couch that stretched past midnight. I got you something, he said, pulling out a small box. Emily's stomach dropped. Nathaniel, if that's jewelry, it's not. He handed it over. Open it. Inside was a keychain, simple, silver, with a small engraved plate. For the woman who returned my wallet and changed my life. Emily felt tears prick her eyes. This is perfect. I wanted to get you diamonds. Rebecca said that's what you do for Valentine's Day. But that felt wrong somehow. He took her hand. You're not a diamonds person. You're a practical keychain person who actually uses what she's given. I love it. She kissed him, soft and grateful. Thank you. There's one more thing. He pulled out an envelope. 2 tickets to the Natural History Museum. Next Saturday. I thought maybe Sophie would like the dinosaur exhibit. Emily stared at the tickets. You want to meet Sophie? Like officially? I want to be part of your life. That includes your daughter. He looked nervous, which was strangely endearing. Unless it's too soon. I don't want to push. It's not too soon. Emily smiled. She'll love it. Fair warning, though, she'll talk your ear off about Triceratops facts. I can handle that. The museum trip was chaos in the best way. Sophie was initially shy around Nathaniel, hiding behind Emily's legs, but within 20 minutes she was holding his hand and dragging him from exhibit to exhibit, explaining dinosaur classifications with the authority of a 6-year-old expert. Nathaniel listened seriously, asked questions, lifted Sophie up to see displays she couldn't reach, bought her a stuffed pterodactyl from the gift shop despite Emily's protests. You're spoiling her, Emily said as they left. That's kind of the point. He shifted Sophie to his other hip. She'd gotten tired and he'd offered to carry her without being asked. Besides, Marcus is with his grandparents this weekend. I needed my dinosaur fix. When do I get to meet Marcus? The question slipped out before Emily could stop it. Nathaniel's expression shifted. Soon. I just need to figure out how to explain this to him first. Explain what? That I'm seeing someone. He's 7. He doesn't remember his mother. The idea of me with another woman is going to be confusing. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to know this isn't about hiding you. It's about protecting him. Emily reached for his free hand. I know, and I'm not pushing. Whenever you're ready. But the conversation left a weight between them that hadn't been there before. 2 weeks later, Emily got called to HR. Jennifer Park's face was professionally neutral as she gestured to a chair. This is a difficult conversation, Jennifer began. And I want to be clear that you're not in trouble. Then why am I here? There have been complaints from employees who feel that your relationship with Mr. Hayes creates an unfair advantage. Questions about whether your recent promotion to senior analyst was merit-based or influenced by personal factors. Emily's face went hot. I earned that promotion. I know you did. Your work speaks for itself. But perception matters, Emily. And right now, the perception is problematic. What are you suggesting? Jennifer folded her hands on her desk. We have a few options. You could transfer to a different division where Nathaniel isn't your direct superior, or we could implement additional oversight on any future promotions or assignments. Or, she paused, one of you could leave the company. You're asking me to quit. I'm presenting options. Emily stood. I'm not quitting. I'm not transferring. And I'm not apologizing for being good at my job just because some people can't separate my professional performance from my personal life. Emily, is there anything else? Jennifer sighed. No, that's all. Emily left HR feeling like she'd been punched, made it to the bathroom before the tears came, locked herself in a stall and tried to breathe through the rage and humiliation. Her phone buzzed, text from Nathaniel. My office, now. She washed her face, fixed her makeup, and took the elevator to 20. Nathaniel was pacing when she entered. Jennifer just told me about the meeting. Did she also tell you she suggested I quit? She suggested options. There's a difference. Is there? Emily crossed her arms. Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like the company would prefer I didn't exist. That's not true. Then what is true? That my relationship with you has made my job impossible? That everything I accomplish will be attributed to sleeping with the boss? That I'll never be taken seriously here? Nathaniel moved toward her. Emily, don't. She held up a hand. I need you to be honest with me. If we continue, what does my career look like? Because I can't survive on being your girlfriend. I need to be able to support Sophie, to advance on my own merit, to have a future that isn't dependent on whether or not we're together. The words hung between them, sharp and necessary. You're right, Nathaniel said finally. This isn't sustainable. Not like this. Emily's heart sank. What are you saying? I'm saying I need to remove myself from the equation. I've been thinking about it for weeks, and there's only one solution. He took a breath. I'm stepping down as CEO. What? No. Nathaniel, you can't. I can. I've built this company to the point where it runs without me. Charles can take over as CEO. I'll move to chairman of the board, less operational involvement. That way I'm not your direct superior anymore. You're giving up your company for me? I'm not giving it up. I'm restructuring. Something I should have done years ago. He reached for her hands. Emily, I don't want you to have to choose between your career and us. So I'm making a choice that removes that conflict. That's insane. That's love. The word dropped like a stone in still water. Emily stared at him. What did you say? Nathaniel smiled, nervous and honest. I said that's love. I'm in love with you, Emily. Have been for weeks, maybe months. Maybe since you called about the wallet. I don't know. But I know that I'm not willing to lose you because of job titles and office politics. You love me. Yes. I'm a mess. I'm stubborn and difficult, and I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I'm scared all the time that I'm one mistake away from losing everything. I know. I love you anyway. Emily felt tears on her face. I love you too, which is why you can't step down. Build your company, Nathaniel. I'll figure out the rest. What are you going to do? I'm going to be so damn good at my job that no one can question whether I earned my place here. I'm going to work twice as hard and prove that I belong regardless of who I'm dating. She wiped her eyes. And if that doesn't work, then I'll leave. But it'll be my choice, not because someone pressured me. Nathaniel pulled her close. You're amazing. I'm terrified. That too. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in his office with the city spreading out below them, both of them knowing that loving each other was the easy part. Living it would be considerably harder. March brought challenges that tested Emily's resolve. A major client pulled their account, citing discomfort with the leadership dynamics at Hayes Capital. 2 senior analysts resigned, though they gave vague reasons about pursuing other opportunities. The office atmosphere turned toxic in subtle ways. Conversations that stopped when Emily entered rooms, invitations to after-work drinks that mysteriously excluded her, projects assigned to other analysts even when she was the logical choice. Emily documented everything, kept records, worked harder than everyone around her, and refused to give anyone ammunition. But it wore on her. You look exhausted, Mrs. Chen said one evening, watching Emily collapse on the couch. I am exhausted. Is it worth it, this job? Emily thought about the salary that had lifted them out of constant crisis, about Sophie's new shoes that fit properly, about the dentist appointments they could actually keep, about the future that suddenly seemed possible. Yes, she said, it's worth it. And the man? Is he worth it too? That was a harder question. Emily thought about Nathaniel playing with Sophie at the museum, about the way he called her every night just to hear her voice, about the future they were trying to build despite impossible odds. I think so, she said. Ask me again in 6 months. Mrs. Chen patted her hand. Love is always worth it, until it's not. The breaking point came in late March. Emily was presenting a quarterly analysis to the investment committee when Rebecca Ashford interrupted. I have a question about your methodology, Rebecca said, her tone professional but her eyes cold. Did you consult with Mr. Hayes on this analysis? No, I conducted this independently. But you discussed it with him. I discuss all my work with my team lead, per protocol. Your team lead being Charles Wright, not Nathaniel Hayes? The room went silent. Everyone understood what Rebecca was really asking. Emily met her eyes. Yes, Charles reviewed this analysis. If you'd like to question my methodology, please do so based on the work itself, not on speculation about my personal life. Rebecca smiled. I'm just ensuring our processes remain objective. Our processes are objective. I'm sorry if you're having trouble seeing that. Charles Wright cleared his throat. I reviewed Emily's analysis thoroughly. It's sound. Can we move on? The meeting continued, but the damage was done. Emily felt every eye in the room assessing, judging, questioning. After the meeting, Charles stopped her in the hallway. That was well handled. Was it? Because it felt like I just made everything worse. Rebecca's been looking for an opening to undermine you since you started. You didn't give her one. He paused. For what it's worth, your work is exceptional. Don't let the politics make you forget that. It was the kindest thing anyone at Hayes Capital had said to her in weeks. That evening, Emily sat in Nathaniel's apartment for the first time. It was as expensive and impersonal as she'd expected, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, artwork that probably cost more than her annual salary. But Marcus's toys were scattered across the living room floor, and a child's drawing was stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, and somehow that made the space feel less intimidating. Rebecca ambushed me in the investment committee meeting, she told Nathaniel. He looked up from where he was reviewing papers. What happened? Emily explained, watched his expression darken. I'll talk to her. No, don't. Emily moved to sit beside him. That's exactly what she wants. Proof that you're protecting me. Proof that I can't fight my own battles. So what do you want to do? I want to beat her at her own game, outwork her, outthink her, make it impossible for anyone to question whether I belong in that room. Nathaniel set aside his papers, gave her his full attention. You know you don't have anything to prove. Not to me. Not to anyone. I know, but I need to prove it to myself. He understood. She could see it in his eyes. This wasn't about him or about Hayes Capital. This was about Emily reclaiming something that 3 years of poverty and struggle had taken from her, the belief that she was capable of extraordinary things. Then let's make a plan, Nathaniel said. They spent the next hour strategizing, identifying projects where Emily could demonstrate her value, mapping out professional development opportunities, building a case for her next promotion that would be so airtight that even Rebecca couldn't argue against it. It felt good. Working together like this, partners instead of just lovers. Around 10, Emily stood to leave. I should get home. Sophie's probably wondering where I am. Stay, Nathaniel said. What? Stay tonight. Sophie's with Mrs. Chen, right? You said she's sleeping over there because you had a late meeting. Yes, but... So stay. Have breakfast with Marcus and me in the morning. Let me show you that part of my life. Emily hesitated. This felt like a threshold. Meeting Marcus casually at a museum was one thing. Spending the night and having breakfast like a family was something else entirely. Are you sure he's ready for that? I told him about you last week. He's curious. Keeps asking when he can meet Sophie's mom. What did you tell him? That you're someone very special to me, someone I care about very much. Nathaniel took her hand. He wants to meet you, Emily. I want you to meet him. Please. She stayed. Marcus appeared at 7 a.m., padding into the kitchen in dinosaur pajamas, with his dark hair sticking up in all directions. He stopped when he saw Emily at the table. Hi, Emily said gently. You must be Marcus. He nodded, shy, and went straight to Nathaniel. His father picked him up, whispered something in his ear. Marcus looked at Emily. Dad says you have a daughter who likes dinosaurs too. I do. Her name is Sophie. She's 6. I'm 7. That means I'm older. It does. Can I teach her stuff about dinosaurs? Because I know a lot. Emily smiled. I think she'd really like that. Marcus warmed up over pancakes that Nathaniel made with surprising competence. He told Emily about school, about his soccer team, about the science project he was working on. He was sweet and smart, and so much like his father that Emily's heart ached. After breakfast, Marcus went to watch cartoons. Nathaniel pulled Emily into his arms. That went well, he said. He's wonderful. He likes you, I can tell. How? Because he actually ate his pancakes instead of picking out all the blueberries. He only does that when he's comfortable. Emily laughed, kissed him, felt something settle in her chest that had been restless for months. Maybe this could work. Maybe they could build something real despite all the obstacles and complications. Maybe love was enough to bridge the gap between their impossible worlds. Or maybe she was deluding herself. But standing in Nathaniel's kitchen with his son's laughter echoing from the living room and the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, Emily decided that delusion felt an awful lot like hope. And hope, she was learning, was worth fighting for. The playdate happened on a Saturday in April, arranged with the careful diplomacy of a peace treaty. Marcus and Sophie met at Central Park, on neutral ground, where both kids felt comfortable and both parents could pretend this wasn't terrifying. Sophie hid behind Emily's legs at first, suddenly shy despite weeks of asking when she could meet the boy whose daddy found Mama. Marcus stood close to Nathaniel, clutching a soccer ball, equally uncertain. Hi, Sophie said finally, her voice small. Hi, Marcus answered. Then they just stared at each other while Emily and Nathaniel exchanged helpless looks. Want to kick the ball? Marcus offered. Sophie nodded. They ran off across the grass, and just like that, the awkwardness evaporated. Kids had that ability, to move past discomfort into play without the baggage adults carried. Emily and Nathaniel sat on a bench, close enough to supervise but far enough to give the children space. That was easier than I expected, Emily said. Give it time. Marcus might challenge her to a dinosaur knowledge competition. He's competitive. So is Sophie. This could get ugly. They watched the kids kick the ball back and forth, Marcus showing Sophie how to aim, Sophie laughing when she missed. The sound carried across the park like music. I want more of this, Nathaniel said quietly. More Saturdays, more normal. This isn't normal for you. Normal for me is business dinners and charity galas and meetings that run until midnight. This, he gestured to the kids, this is what I've been missing, what Marcus has been missing. Emily leaned against his shoulder. We can do more Saturdays. I want more than Saturdays, Emily. Something in his tone made her sit up. What do you mean? I mean, I'm tired of splitting my life into compartments. Work, Emily. and home Emily. CEO, Nathaniel, and Dad Nathaniel. I want it all together, integrated, real. It is real. But it's separate. You've never spent the night when Marcus is home. We've never had dinner together, all four of us. We're still treating this like something temporary instead of something permanent. Emily's heart kicked against her ribs. Nathaniel? I'm not proposing, not yet. I know it's too soon. He took her hand. But I need to know if that's where this is heading, because if it's not, I need to protect Marcus, protect myself. I can't keep falling deeper if you're still not sure. The honesty hit Emily like cold water. She watched Sophie chase the soccer ball, her daughter's laughter bright and careless, and thought about all the ways this could go wrong. The complications, the scrutiny, the risk of building a life with someone whose world was so far from hers. But she also thought about the way Nathaniel looked at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him, the way he listened to Sophie's rambling stories with genuine interest, the way he'd restructured his entire company to protect her career, the way he made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved extraordinary things. It's heading there, she said quietly. Scares the hell out of me, but it's heading there. Nathaniel pulled her close, kissed her temple. Good, because I bought a ring 3 weeks ago and I've been carrying it around like an idiot, waiting for the right moment. Emily jerked back. You what? Too much? Nathaniel, we've been together for 3 months. 4. And I've known I wanted to marry you since Christmas. He smiled at her expression. I'm not asking today. I'm just telling you the ring exists. For when we're ready, both of us. Emily didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're insane. Probably. Is that a deal breaker? No, but we're doing this slow. Meeting each other's families slow, making sure the kids are comfortable slow, building something that lasts slow. I can do slow. Can you, though? He considered. I can try to do slow. Good enough. They spent the rest of the afternoon at the park, the 4 of them together for the first time as something resembling a family. They got ice cream that dripped down Sophie's chin and Marcus's shirt. They played on the playground, Nathaniel pushing both kids on the swings, while Emily took pictures on her phone that she'd look at later and marvel at. They walked home as the sun set, Marcus and Sophie running ahead, already thick as thieves. Same time next week? Nathaniel asked as they parted ways at the subway. Same time next week, Emily agreed. But the following Tuesday, everything fell apart. Emily was at her desk when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, still wary of reporters, but something made her pick up. Ms. Carter, this is Linda Brennan from the New York Department of Education. Emily's stomach dropped. Is Sophie okay? Sophie is fine, but there's been an incident at school. We need you to come in immediately. 20 minutes later, Emily was sitting in the principal's office with her daughter beside her, both of them facing Principal Morrison's tight expression. Sophie has been talking about Nathaniel Hayes at school, Morrison said, telling other children that her mother is dating a billionaire. Some parents have expressed concerns. Emily felt her face flush. Concerns about what? About the attention this brings to our school. We've already had one photographer attempt to enter the building claiming to be a parent. The other children are asking questions, creating disruption. So you're blaming Sophie for talking about her life? I'm explaining that this situation is problematic. Several parents have suggested that perhaps a private school might be more appropriate for Sophie's current circumstances. The words landed like a slap. You're kicking her out? We're suggesting that a different environment might better suit her needs. Emily stood, pulled Sophie up with her. Her needs? She's 6. Her needs are to go to school without being punished because her mother's personal life makes people uncomfortable. Ms. Carter, please understand. No. You understand. My daughter has done nothing wrong. If parents have problems with photographers, call the police. If other kids have questions, teach them about boundaries. But don't you dare make Sophie feel like she's the problem. She left before Morrison could respond, Sophie's small hand tight in hers. In the hallway, Emily leaned against the wall and tried to breathe through the rage. This was what Nathaniel had warned her about, the cost of being visible. But knowing it intellectually and experiencing it were completely different things. Mama? Sophie's voice was small. Are you mad at me? Emily knelt down, eye level with her daughter. No, baby, I'm not mad at you, not at all. Principal Morrison said I shouldn't talk about Nathaniel. Principal Morrison is wrong. You can talk about anyone in your life who's important to you. Emily smoothed Sophie's hair back. But some people are going to be weird about it, because Nathaniel has a lot of money, and that makes people act strange. Why? I don't know, because people are complicated and sometimes they're not very nice. Sophie thought about this. I like Nathaniel and Marcus. Can we still see them? Of course we can. Good. Marcus is teaching me about soccer. Emily hugged her daughter tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, and made a decision. She called Nathaniel from the subway. Emily? What's wrong? She told him about the school meeting, heard his sharp intake of breath. I'll call my attorney. We can fight this. No, we're not fighting. Emily, I'm transferring her to a school that can handle this. A private school. The words tasted bitter but necessary. I can't afford it on my salary, but I have savings. I'll figure it out. Let me pay for it. No. Emily, this is happening because of me. Let me fix it. This is happening because people are terrible, and I won't let Sophie suffer because I'm too proud to accept help. She took a breath. But I'm not making her change schools so we can keep dating. I'm doing it because she deserves better than what that school is offering. So if you want to help me find somewhere good, somewhere she'll be happy. Okay, Nathaniel said quietly. Okay, I'll make some calls. The new school was in Tribeca, small and progressive and prohibitively expensive. The waiting list was 18 months long. Nathaniel made a phone call. Sophie had an interview scheduled for the following week. I can't keep letting you do this, Emily said as they left the admissions office after Sophie's successful interview. Fix things with money and connections. Why not? Because it's not real. Because I need to know I can handle my own life. Nathaniel stopped walking, made her look at him. You do handle your own life. You work harder than anyone I know. You're an incredible mother and an exceptional analyst, but you're also in a relationship with someone who has resources. Using those resources isn't weakness, Emily. It's partnership. Partnership is supposed to be equal. It is equal. You bring things to this relationship I could never buy. Perspective, honesty, the ability to call me out when I'm being an idiot. Sophie, he touched her face. Let me give you this. Let me help Sophie have opportunities. Not because you can't provide for her, but because I love you both and I want to. Emily felt tears prick her eyes. I hate that you're right. I'm rarely right. Take advantage while it lasts. Sophie started at her new school in May. The transition was rougher than Emily expected. New routines, new friends, new everything. Sophie cried the first week, begged to go back to her old school where things were familiar. Emily held her daughter through the tears and wondered if she'd made the right choice. But by week 3, Sophie came home talking about art class and the library, and a girl named Emma who also loved dinosaurs. By week 5, she was happy. And Emily realized that sometimes the hardest choices led to the best outcomes, even if the path there hurt like hell. Work reached a turning point in June. Emily's analysis of a major tech acquisition saved Hayes Capital from a spectacularly bad investment. The company had looked perfect on paper, but Emily had dug into their user metrics and found evidence of inflated numbers. The kind of fraud that would have cost Hayes Capital $50 million. Charles Wright presented her findings to the board. The vote was unanimous, pass on the acquisition. 3 weeks later, that same tech company collapsed when their fraud became public. Hayes Capital avoided catastrophe because Emily had been thorough. The promotion came the next day. Senior portfolio manager. Emily's own team. A salary that made her cry when she saw the number. Rebecca Ashford didn't congratulate her, but she didn't object either, which felt like its own kind of victory. Lauren took Emily out for celebratory drinks. You did it. You actually did it. Did what? Proved you belong here. Not because of Nathaniel, just because you're that good. Emily sipped her wine, let the truth of that settle in. I almost quit 6 times. I know. I was counting. Lauren grinned. But you didn't. You stayed and you fought and you won. Doesn't feel like winning. That's because winning never feels like you think it will. It feels like exhaustion and relief and the scary realization that now you have to keep proving yourself at a whole new level. Lauren raised her glass. Welcome to success. It's terrifying. They clinked glasses, and Emily laughed because it was either that or cry. The first family vacation happened in July, a week at a house in the Hamptons that Nathaniel rented, all four of them together for the first time for more than a few hours. Emily was nervous about the intimacy of it, sharing space, morning routines, the reality of blended family life without the buffer of separate homes to retreat to. The first 2 days were awkward. Marcus and Sophie bickered over the TV remote. Emily felt out of place in a house that cost more per week than her yearly rent used to be. Nathaniel tried too hard to make everything perfect, which just made everyone tense. But on day 3, something shifted. Emily woke up to find Nathaniel in the kitchen making pancakes while Marcus and Sophie set the table together, arguing about whether dinosaurs or spaceships were cooler. The scene was so domestic, so normal, that Emily's throat got tight. "Morning," Nathaniel said, kissing her temple. "Coffee's ready." "You made coffee." "I make coffee every morning." "I know, but I usually miss it because I'm not here." She poured a cup, savored the first sip. "This is nice." "It is." He flipped a pancake. "Scary how nice." "Terrifying." "Want to run away screaming?" "Maybe later, after pancakes." They spent the day at the beach, built sandcastles that the tide destroyed, taught both kids to body surf, ate hot dogs from a stand that dripped mustard on everyone. It was messy and chaotic, and nothing like the carefully curated family moments Emily had imagined. It was better. That evening, after the kids were asleep, Emily and Nathaniel sat on the deck watching the ocean. "I've been thinking," Nathaniel said. "Dangerous." "About Marcus, about how I've been parenting him." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I thought providing for him was enough. Nice things, good schools, opportunities. But watching you with Sophie this week, I realize I've been doing it wrong." "You haven't been doing it wrong." "I have, though. I've been so focused on giving him everything I didn't have that I forgot to just be present, to listen, to let him see me mess up and figure things out." He looked at her. "You do that with Sophie. You're not perfect, but you're there, really there. I don't have a choice. I can't hire people to be there for me. It's not about money. It's about priorities." Nathaniel took her hand. "You've made me want to be better, not just for Marcus, but for myself." Emily squeezed his fingers. "You're already good." "I'm learning, with your help." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the waves, both of them thinking about the future they were building one imperfect day at a time. The proposal happened in September, on a random Tuesday that started like any other. Emily was working late, finishing a quarterly report that was due the next morning. Most of the office had cleared out by 8. She was deep in spreadsheets when Nathaniel appeared at her desk. "Come with me," he said. "I'm in the middle of It can wait. Come on." Emily followed him to the elevator, confused. They rode to the roof, which Emily didn't even know was accessible. Nathaniel pushed open the door to reveal the Manhattan skyline spread out like jewels on black velvet. "What are we doing up here?" Emily asked. "Remember the night you found my wallet?" "Of course." "You were standing on Fifth Avenue in the rain, and you made a choice that changed both our lives. You could have kept the money, solved your problems, but you didn't." Nathaniel turned to face her. "You returned it because it wasn't yours. Because you understood something fundamental about integrity that I'd forgotten in my world of calculating returns and minimizing risk." "Nathaniel, let me finish." He took her hands. "You reminded me that there are still people who do the right thing even when it costs them, who choose honesty over convenience, who build their lives on something more substantial than money." He pulled out a small box. Emily's heart stopped. "I'm not good at slow," Nathaniel admitted. "I'm not good at patient, but I'm good at recognizing when something matters, when someone matters. And you matter, Emily, you and Sophie both. You've become the center of my life, and I don't want to imagine it any other way." He opened the box. The ring caught the city lights, simple and elegant and perfect. "Marry me," he said. "Not because I can give you financial security or because you need saving. Marry me because we're better together than apart. Because Marcus needs you and Sophie needs me and we all need each other. Because I love you and you love me, and that's enough to build a life on." Emily looked at the ring, at Nathaniel's hopeful face, at the city glittering below them. Thought about the wallet in the rain, the interview she almost didn't take, the fraud investigation that could have destroyed her career, every choice that had led to this moment. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." He slid the ring on her finger, kissed her like she was the only thing that mattered in his billion-dollar world. And maybe she was. The engagement brought another wave of media attention, but this time Emily was ready for it. She'd learned how to ignore the noise, how to focus on what mattered. The comments about gold digging and social climbing still stung, but they stung less when she looked at her work, at her promotion, at everything she'd achieved on her own merit. They got married in November, exactly 1 year after Emily had started at Hayes Capital. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Sophie was flower girl, Marcus was ring bearer, and both kids took their jobs with adorable seriousness. Mrs. Chen cried through the entire ceremony. Lauren was Emily's maid of honor and made a speech about how Emily had proven that fairy tales could be real if you were brave enough to fight for them. Emily wore a simple dress, nothing extravagant, because that wasn't who she was. Nathaniel wore a suit that probably cost more than the entire wedding, but he looked at her like she was wearing a ball gown made of stars. They said their vows in a garden in Central Park, the same park where their kids had first played together. When the officiant pronounced them married, Sophie and Marcus cheered louder than anyone. The reception was at a restaurant in Brooklyn, the same one where Emily and Nathaniel had hidden from photographers during their early dates. It felt right, coming full circle like that, celebrating not in some five-star venue, but in a place that represented their beginning. During their first dance, Nathaniel whispered, "No regrets?" "So many regrets," Emily said. "I regret not wearing more comfortable shoes. I regret eating that third piece of cake. I regret not bringing a jacket because it's freezing out here. But no regrets about marrying me?" Not even a little bit. They merged households in December, moving into a place that was neither Nathaniel's sterile penthouse nor Emily's cramped apartment. A real home in Brooklyn with a yard where the kids could play and enough space for everyone to have their own room, but not so much space that they felt like strangers. The blending wasn't seamless. Marcus and Sophie fought over bathroom time and toys and whose turn it was to pick the movie. Emily and Nathaniel disagreed about discipline and schedules and how much technology was appropriate. There were tears and arguments and moments where everyone retreated to separate corners. But there were also family dinners where everyone talked over each other. Movie nights where they all fell asleep on the couch in a pile. Saturday morning pancakes that became a sacred tradition. Homework sessions where Nathaniel and Emily tag-teamed explanations. Soccer games where both kids played and both parents cheered. It was messy and imperfect and nothing like the fairy tale version of blended families that movies showed. It was real. Emily continued working at Hayes Capital, though she reported to Charles now instead of Nathaniel. The gossip eventually died down, replaced by respect for her actual work. She earned 2 more promotions over the next 3 years, each one based solely on merit. Rebecca Ashford eventually left for another firm, and Emily felt nothing but relief. Nathaniel stepped down as CEO like he'd planned, took on the chairman role, and discovered he was much happier with less operational stress and more time for family. He coached Marcus's soccer team. He attended Sophie's school plays. He learned that being present mattered more than being powerful. Sophie grew into a confident kid who loved science and soccer and wasn't afraid to speak her mind. She never forgot where she came from, the tiny apartment, the struggles, the nights when money was tight. But she also grew up knowing that circumstances could change, that hard work mattered, that honesty had value. Marcus became Sophie's brother in every way that mattered. They fought like siblings and protected each other like siblings and drove their parents crazy like siblings. When people asked if they were real brother and sister, they both looked confused. What else would they be? 3 years after the wedding, Emily stood in the same Brooklyn restaurant where they'd had their reception. Hayes Capital was hosting an event honoring women in finance, and Emily was receiving an award for her work in fraud detection and corporate ethics. She gave a speech about integrity, about making choices that cost you in the short term but define you in the long term, about how returning a wallet she desperately needed to keep had taught her that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, opens doors you never knew existed. Nathaniel sat in the audience with Marcus and Sophie, all 3 of them beaming with pride. After the ceremony, Sophie asked, "Mama, do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd kept the wallet?" Emily considered the question seriously. "Sometimes. We would have had money for rent and shoes and medicine. Life would have been easier for a little while." But then you wouldn't have met Nathaniel. No, I wouldn't have. And we wouldn't have Marcus. That's true. Sophie thought about this. I'm glad you returned it. Me too, baby. Because that was the truth Emily had learned over the past 4 years. The small choices, the honest choices, the choices that cost you something in the moment. Those were the ones that built a life worth living. She'd stood on a rain-soaked street and chosen integrity over survival. That choice had led to a job, which led to uncovering fraud, which led to love, which led to family, which led to a life she never could have imagined when she was counting coins for groceries. Not because good things always happen to good people. Life wasn't that simple. But because doing the right thing, consistently and honestly, created opportunities that doing the wrong thing never could. Emily had learned that you could be poor and principled, struggling and honest, desperate and decent. And sometimes, just sometimes, those qualities mattered more than anything else. That rainy October evening, she'd been 30 years old with overdue bills and a sick daughter, and every reason to make the easy choice. She'd made the hard one instead. And it had changed everything. Not overnight, not magically, but slowly, through work and courage and refusing to compromise who she was, even when it would have been simpler. She'd earned her place at Hayes Capital, earned Nathaniel's love, earned the respect of her colleagues and the security of her family. Not because she'd been lucky, but because she'd been brave. That was the lesson Emily wanted Sophie to learn. Not that good things come to those who wait, or that honesty is always rewarded, or any of the other platitudes people like to tell themselves, but that you build a life worth living one choice at a time. That character matters more than circumstances. That the person you are when no one's watching is the person you have to live with forever. Emily Carter had returned a wallet in the rain because it was the right thing to do. Everything else followed from that single moment of integrity. And standing in that restaurant 4 years later, surrounded by the family she'd built, and the career she'd earned and the life she'd fought for, Emily understood something fundamental about happiness. It wasn't something you found or something you were given. It was something you created, one honest choice at a time. The wallet had been the beginning, but Emily was the one who'd written the rest of the story.